Hello, welcome back to the Jet Press Podcast. My name is Justin Freed. I am joined, as always, by my good friend Mike Luciano and a returning member of the podcast, Mike Giarraputo. Boys, we got a big show planned. It is free agency. We are right now 2 hours away from the official start of free agency. We're recording an hour earlier. Honestly, that's good because we're hopefully not going to run directly into the official start of free agency. But we have a lot to talk about, a lot to break down. We're going to talk about every Jets signing. We're going to talk about moves they can still make. Former Jets heading elsewhere, including a contract given to a former Jets player that I think still has all of us stunned. But how are you two doing today? Mike and Mike, what's going on, boys?
I'm doing well,
feeling
man.
okay, mostly just because this was an option, at least for quarterback. We talked about quarterback for God knows however long, and they finally ended up getting a guy that was at the top of our list. Not the top, but near the top of our list. Certainly among the realistic options and not the crazier Carr, Stafford. Was certainly higher up there. They got Justin Fields. They've already made a couple of nice depth signings. One of them's a little controversial, but I like some of the other ones. We'll get into all that. The Jets aren't necessarily going to be a contender right now, but I'm looking at this, and I'm a lot more optimistic than I was perhaps maybe a couple days ago. I think that there's at least something here for the whole Aaron Glenn, Darren Muji experience. I don't know if Mr. Giarraputo is on that same wavelength.
I think there's definitely some positives to take away from what we've seen so far the first 2-3 days of free agency. Guys, first of all, Justin, Mike, thanks for having me back on. It's always a pleasure to be on with you boys, especially on a day like today. We have plenty to talk about. This show this show could go 4 hours if we wanted it to. So we'll have plenty to talk about. But, yeah, Fields, one of my preferred options. I mean, we talked about it the last time I was on, whether who was going to be at quarterback next for the Jets. We had some discussions about Aaron Rodgers, which I think maybe we won't even say his name again today. So maybe that's
well, you already did. So
we'll return the fade. Hey,
we might.
who are you talking about?
We are probably going to get some breaking news while we're doing this show. If it is anything like traditional Jet Press podcast, we're probably going to get the Jets signing a wide receiver. Hopefully, they have not signed one yet. Knowing how this stuff works, that we always get.
Last year, they at least had the courtesy to do a lot of them on Tuesdays before the show, like Tyron Smith and things like that.
Now, consider this the Rashad Weaver emergency pod, because that's the signing the Jets made it right before this. So let's start with Justin Fields. Let's start with the first player that the Jets signed and the most important player that they signed.
Before we get to that, though, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, all the podcast platforms. And if you're watching on YouTube, here's how you support the show. You can like the stream. You could subscribe. Both those things are free. Or if you want to pay 99 cents, enjoy our membership, you can very easily do that. Just hit that little join button, and that's where you sign up there. You can also gift memberships, use the super chat. Never expected, always appreciated. Now let's get into Justin Fields. And I got a bone to pick with the national media as a result of this Justin Fields signing, because on top of the fact that a lot of them probably rightly will just assume any move the Jets do won't work out, because that's pretty true considering recent history. The takes that I've seen from a lot of the big talking heads are, I see this as a disaster. They think they're really going to improve with Justin Fields. Like, they think that the Jets are signing Justin Fields to try to be like Aaron Glenn's guy. And I don't think that's how the Jets are viewing it, because outside of possibly Daniel Jones, who's competing with Anthony Richardson, no non-rookie scale starter in the league is making less than Justin Fields. Anybody bashing this like, oh, the Jets are paying $40 million for a guy they want to lead their franchise, and he hasn't been able to do it in Chicago or Pittsburgh, I think they're missing the forest through the trees a little bit, because the Jets are basically giving Fields kind of like a one-year prove-it deal. They're saying, you know what, for 2025, we don't know how good we're going to be. We're probably not going to be that good, but you're the man. Now's your chance. You're the man. If you're good enough, it's basically a team option. Then we can give you like that sort of Baker Mayfield-y, Darnold-y contract if you prove yourself. And if you don't, we're not on the hook for it. It's $10 million. That's not nothing, but you can work around that if you're a GM. They have enough financial flexibility to work around that. And then they could draft a guy or maybe pay a little bit more for a more experienced guy next year. So part of why we liked Fields is he has that upside. And I don't think he's a totally lost cause for 2025. I'm not going to join the cacophony of Justin Fields supporters who are kind of like Zach Wilson supporters, in that Zach Wilson just never gave you anything, and mostly his supporters are people in denial trying to tell you he's good. Fields has more supporters, and they're louder, but he's at least giving you something. And what the Jets are getting in him is not a good athlete, a great athlete. The only quarterback who qualifies that has more rushing yards per game in NFL history is Lamar Jackson. And that includes a couple games where Fields got in for a couple plays and ran like one or two. It includes that, dragging the averages down. So this is a premium athlete that you don't see every now and again. A fantastic arm in terms of arm talent. He gets to work with Garrett Wilson again. He gets to work with a coach that is seemingly very concerned about trying to build an offense around running the ball. You get Breece Hall and a good offensive line next to him. This is a signing where I'm not going to say that the Jets are going to win or lose any more games because I don't think they're going to be particularly good next year anyway. But of the options available, I think this is the best they could have done. And I'm happy for Fields that he got $30 million to show that he could be the guy. Now, he knows this is the last house on the block. And if he messes up here and if he fails here, he's probably never getting another starting job ever again. But it's a good spot for Fields right now as a player and for the Jets just where they are directionally.
100%. I think this deal makes a ton of sense for both sides. And I remember us talking months back. And I think you hit it on the nail on the head with that last part where it's like, this isn't an amazing signing. I don't think it's a franchise-altering move by the Jets, but it was the best opportunity they had. This was the best option they had. He is the best young upside bridge quarterback that they could have possibly added this offseason. And I do think it makes a ton of sense for both sides. Justin Fields gets to go to a Jets team where he is the starter. I don't think there's going to be a quarterback competition. I'm not even sure they'll call it one with Tyrod Taylor. And even if they do, it's not a competition. This is Justin Fields' job to lose. He will be the starter. In Pittsburgh, I get the sense that while Pittsburgh might have been saying, hey, look, if we bring you back, you're going to be the starter. He was benched last year. And I think that really, really kind of stuck with him. And I think that's why he ultimately chose the Jets as a landing spot. It's a good place for him to potentially resurrect his career. Obviously, the comparisons have been made in the past. Hey, maybe he could pull a Baker Mayfield. Hey, maybe he could pull a Sam Darnold. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't expect that to happen. Right. I'm not expecting Justin Fields to be the Jets starting quarterback in 2027. I didn't think whoever they signed this offseason was going to be a long-term option. I also don't think they're in a position in the draft to draft somebody who is going to be a long-term starter for them. That leaves them with limited options, with either you're to pay big money to Sam Darnold, try and get him to come back to New York, which is probably never going to happen anyway, or you're going to sign a veteran bridge like the other guys that they were interested in, were apparently Marcus Mariota, who just re-upped with the Commanders, or dare I say Carson Wentz, which was a name that was thrown out there as well. Justin Fields at least gives the Jets, a quarterback who I believe is a top 25 quarterback in the NFL. I think he's probably in that 20 to 25 range where
sure.
At that point, once you're getting to that range, you're talking about guys who are probably fringe starters who are starting in bad teams and, not necessarily going to be leading you to the playoffs or a deep run in the playoffs, but he gives you somebody who's at least starting caliber and gives you someone who has genuine upside. And on top of that, Mike, you mentioned the rushing ability. That is an element that the Jets, dare I say, have never had in their offense. In the entirety of their history, I don't think they've had a quarterback that is, unless you're counting like the few games Michael Vick started.
What about, yeah, come on.
But that was
I'm about to retire Michael Vick.
Right. I'm talking about like a solidified starting quarterback going into the year. This is a guy who's rushed for 1,000 yards in the season. Mm-hmm. The Jets have never had a quarterback.
Breece Hall has never done that.
Breece Hall, Alvin Kamara has never done that. Justin Fields has done that. So I think that's a really underappreciated part of this. And I also want to point this out too. This shout out to Mike Mitchell, who's another contributor on the Jet Press, who pointed this out to me when we were talking the other day. Mike covers another Mike. I know there's too many Mikes here. Mike covers the XFL, UFL, all the spring leagues are formerly the XFL, and he watched Tanner Engstrand, the new Jets offensive coordinator, call plays for the DC Defenders back in the XFL. And I'm bringing this up for a reason because the quarterbacks of those teams, this is the only time Tanner Engstrand has called plays beyond the college level. Quarterbacks of those teams were Tyree Jackson and Cardale Jones, two quarterbacks who obviously not the same caliber of players. Justin, they were in the UFL for a reason.
I thought Tyree Jackson was going to be good, man. I
watched him play in person at Buffalo, and I'm like, this dude is a freak. And then he just can't play football, but that's okay. They share similar strengths and weaknesses to Justin Fields, and that DC Defenders team was pretty good. And Tanner Engstrand was able to get a lot out of that offense and was able to maximize their physical gifts, maximize their rushing ability while masking some of their weaknesses. I think that experience is really, really valuable. I know, people will be like, oh, it's the XFL, right? it still matters. Like, that is an experience.
It wasn't like he was not trying hard. Like,
right. That is a literal proof on his resume of maximizing the talents of quarterbacks with similar strengths and similar weaknesses to Justin Fields. So I'm optimistic about the offense the Jets can build around Fields. I'm optimistic about how the running game might look, the offensive line. I think the Jets have an offensive identity now, which, I don't know what you'd say their offensive identity of the last 2 years was with Aaron Rodgers, or I guess last year Rodgers, and
bad.
God forbid. Well, I don't know what it was with Zach Wilson, but right now I know what the Jets offense is going to look like. It's not perfect. Justin Fields has many of the same weaknesses that held him back in Chicago. They were still there in Pittsburgh. I don't think he's going to be perfect. I don't think they're going to fix all of those issues, but I see a clear vision with the Jets offense, and at least I see an upside with the quarterback that they brought in.
Yeah, you know what I like about Justin Fields, and it's something that neither of you guys brought up, is the leadership. Like, sure. People, like, remember back when he was leaving Chicago, like that offseason, those kind of few months before it, where we kind of knew they were going to get Caleb Williams, but it wasn't necessarily confirmed. There was still things going on. DJ Moore is coming out saying, I don't want to play for any other quarterback. He is his number one wide receiver, who, by the way, had a 1,300-yard season. Everyone's saying this is going to be like such a bad thing for Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
Teammates at OSU. He'll
Not
be
like
fine.
Garrett Wilson became a top 10 pick on the strength of a Justin Fields season or anything.
Garrett Wilson has had consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, or he's had 3 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons with Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, Joe Flacco, Mike.
Yeah,
like the ghost of Aaron Rodgers.
He'll be very fine. And, Aaron Glenn also game planned against him as a DC for the Lions 5 times. So he's watching him and seeing these things that Fields is doing while he has Jared Goff. Like, sometimes you get a little jealous of that. Not that Fields is a better quarterback than Goff, or I don't think he never has been. But sometimes you see, what Goff is and what Goff is when he tries to escape the pocket versus maybe a guy like Fields, and you're seeing all these things that I wonder what I'd be, what we'd be drawing up against this kind of, like, I like Fields as a leader, and I think that was one of the most important things in terms of who was available for the Jets this year, because you look at the other options. Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, it's none of them really excite you. With Justin Fields, you kind of know what you're getting in terms of the locker room. The Steelers, I'm sure the Steelers locker room, when Fields got benched, they were all talking to each other like, what the hell are we doing? What the hell is going on? I'm sure that was happening because it was happening on the outside. I'm sure that was happening inside the Steelers locker room. And by the way, last year, a lot of improvement for Justin Fields. I know only 6 games. But here, I wrote some of these down here. Like 3.08 seconds to throw last year versus in 2023 it was 3.4 and 3.45 in 2022. So that was kind of one of the knocks on him. 3.08 isn't exactly league best, but there were improvements made for Justin Fields last year, and I don't think he's going to have the Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith type of story to his career with the Jets, especially. But he's an exciting option. He's getting me excited to watch the Jets week 1, which I said I wouldn't be doing probably about a month or 2 ago. So I am excited to watch him as a Jet.
Well, the two things with Fields, not to be Debbie Downer here a little bit, but we have to be careful not to overrate like what he did in those 6. Like if he really was breaking out and improving to that degree, they probably would have kept him in there. Like there was enough. I believe his EPA per dropback was like in the high 30s. Across the in that stint, so he wasn't exactly lighting the world on fire as much as he did improve. So we got to be careful not to overrate that. The riddle with Fields is, and you don't see this much anymore, because back in the day they'd have running quarterbacks who would struggle to throw. But the act of just drop back, find a guy, throw it to a guy, like he's pretty good at that. He's never going to be this Joe Burrow surgical kind of downfield accurate. He's never going to be that, but
right.
If just the simple act of drop back in the pocket, find a guy and throw it to him, you get a lot of good results because his arm is good. I like his accuracy from the pocket, like when he gets time. The weird thing is and I guess this is why there's so many of these Justin Fields defenders out there. You're like, why doesn't he do that all the time? It's like he's getting in a rhythm, and then I don't know what happens. I don't know if he gets scared or he starts trying too hard to make a play and use his legs, or the one big problem he has is he always is held on to the ball very long. And I think at this point, you're probably just going to have to make peace with that. You can get him to improve it slightly, but you're probably never going to completely knock it out.
Well, hey, he came down 0.3 of a second just last year.
And even then, that's not
it's not anything crazy, but he's In terms of the improvements, I'll do that, and I'll do also the turnover worthy plays was the lowest of his career, like per game. Also was thrown over the middle of the field more with Pittsburgh. Like there were things to like. Look, I don't think he's a top 20 passer in the NFL. I mean, we're hoping he can get to that level, but I don't know.
I really don't have like a comparison across recent history for Fields because he has not, like, for as much as we like him, he hasn't provided a ton of gaudy statistical passing numbers. He had the 1 year with the rushing.
No.
But he has these like hype. He's almost like an NBA player where he has these, as Chew gifts 5 memberships. Thank you for that. Thanks for tuning into the show. Much appreciated to you guys.
Here we go.
Mother effing Chew. Let's go.
He'll have these plays where you're like, oh my God, like he finally figures it out. Almost kind of like a Wilson way, but it's like the one crazy play he'll make. Like I remember, everybody remembers that run against the Niners where he's faking out and snaking all the way back. Like he'll do that, and then there's like 2 hit a guy on 3rd and 6, and he'll just overthrow a guy in a slant, and they got a punt.
Right.
And you know, I guess it's the beauties in the eye of the beholder kind of thing. Which Justin Fields do you think you're going to get? The guy who's a crazy athlete who does that, or the guy who'll just miss guys from the pocket every now and again? And I still don't know which one we're going to get. I hope we get more of the former than the latter, but
I think it's
still got to weigh that when you play him.
I think it's partially a mental thing with him. Also, with holding on to the ball, it doesn't help that he has a really long release as well. Like some guys have that quick zip with their passes. He's got a great arm, but it kind of takes him a while.
Connor Long has donated 5 memberships too. Thank you,
Connor.
What a guy!
Much appreciated, buddy. Connor has given a lot.
This whole free agency week's been kind of crazy. I've been fueled on Arizona iced tea, and you were paying for that. So without you, the fan sided content would fall off a cliff because I had to be down on my keyboard.
I should be going on Connor's show, by the way, tomorrow. I believe 8 p.m. if I'm remembering that correctly. It is in my calendar somewhere. So check that out as well. Connor does great work. But yeah, there was a comment I wanted to get to in chat from Marcelo Cabrera. He said, but why get Fields if you don't think he is a viable long-term solution to the QB problem? Kind of what we were talking about before, where, first of all, I would propose this question to you as a response to this question. Who is a viable long-term quarterback option Jets could possibly acquire this offseason? I don't think there was one.
The only one was Darnold, and he would never come back to the Jets. So,
and are we also positive that he is a viable long-term solution? I'm not positive of that at all. I don't think there was a viable long-term solution this offseason, Marcelo. And that's what we were talking about before is the best of the options that the Jets had. The Jets don't have great options. They don't have great options everywhere. We're talking later, and we're saying, oh, here are some wide receivers they could target. Here's a right tackle they could target. We're not talking about great options. We're going to be saying, hey, look, Tim Patrick might be something. I'm on Twitter standing for Kendall Lamb. Like we're not.
Cedric Wills.
Jets Twitter almost crashed out yesterday because they didn't sign Nick Westbrook-Akine, which is a contract that I would have liked them to sign.
That would have been nice.
It would have been nice, but
he had 9 touchdowns.
Players were crashing out over. Like the options are limited. The market, not only for the quarterbacks, but for everything this offseason, both in free agency and the draft, is not particularly good. So I would ask you, if you're saying why did we get Fields? We don't think he's a long-term option. What would be your other solution? Like, do you think there was a long-term solution for the quarterback problem this offseason? And if so, what was it? Because I don't see it.
I mean, you could draft one, but I just don't think in this class,
You could draft one at 7. You could draft Shedeur Sanders. You could draft Jackson Dart because Cam Ward's probably not going to be there. Are you confident? Like, do you think Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart are worth, not just you, I'm talking Marcelo, anybody. Do you think they're worthy of the 7th overall pick? If you do, cool. Then, yeah, maybe that's what you would have preferred. I don't believe that they're worthy of the 7th overall pick. I see them as long-term solutions.
Do we still see Jackson Dart as a possibility? Like, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, Muji was part of the Broncos front office that kind of said, screw what everybody else thinks about Bo Nix. He's not a late first rounder. He's not a second rounder. We're going to get him 12th. Like, do you think there's any part of the Jets? I don't know. I mean, Fields is only 2 years. Jackson Dart, I wouldn't call him ready to start. I think it would not make sense, but I do think it's still if let's say a book was offering 20-1 odds on the Jets doing that, I think I would take that bet. I think it's still a remote possibility.
You think at 7, you think? I
think it's very, very slightly possible that this happens.
Only because with the way the Fields contract is, it would be a tough sell because Dart would probably be the 3rd quarterback because Tyrod would probably be the backup. So you'd use your first premium pick on a guy who won't play his rookie year. So that's a tough sell. But I think the Fields contract, I would say, unless they just get blown away with one of them, which, hey, if you get blown away with a quarterback in round 1 or 2, you take him. I get that. I really think that this kind of knocks them out of a top 100 pick being used on a quarterback. Because now if they had got a bridge quarterback, if they had got Kirk Cousins, Marcus Mariota, Russell Wilson, they're firmly in the quarterback hunt there. I think with the way the Fields contract is and the fact that I wouldn't say they expect it. Like right now, like if I put the odds on if Fields is going to be the quarterback one in 2026, it's still not 50-50. Would it be crazy to say 20-80?
20-80, like yes, he
20
will.
He is, 80 he's not.
I'd put it higher.
Maybe 33-67.
Like in terms of week one starter 2026.
Week one starter 2026.
I'd put it at like 60% odds. Maybe not. Maybe a little higher.
Well, that's the belief.
That's still
I think it's a 2-year thing with Fields. I think they could consider drafting someone next year. As far as drafting one this year, I've said it from the start. I'm not really interested in any quarterback in this class that's not Cam Ward. I don't really believe in any quarterback enough to take them. Mm-hmm. If there is a quarterback that makes more sense now for the Jets than he did before the Justin Fields signing, I do believe it's Jalen Milroe. I was in favor of Milroe potentially as a round 2 pick. I'm not saying I'm banging the drum for it. I'm not going to get over here and do a handstand if they draft him, but I would like it, and I think there's upside with Jalen Milroe that makes a ton of sense, especially with the Justin Fields signing, because like I said before, the Jets now have an offensive identity. They've made it very clear the offense that they're probably going to run with Justin Fields, what their strengths are. They're going to lean into them. I think Jalen Milroe fits those strengths, and he fits the offense that they're going to try and run. Like you said, though, Mike, Luciano, I do see the issue of, hey, you're drafting this guy. You're not going to draft him at 7. I'm not advocating for Milroe at 7. I'm advocating saying maybe you take him in the 2nd round. If you do that, he is, however, your 3rd string now for the entire season, which not only is, he's not going to play as a rookie, he's also not getting a ton of reps in practice, which is an underrated part about it. Like that is something you need to consider unless they just don't give Tyrod a lot of reps in practice. Usually the QB2 is the guy getting those reps.
Marcelo Cabrera says, I don't see Fields being a leap. I could see being a top 15-ish quarterback in the league, and that would be enough to solve the problem. If Justin Fields becomes a top 15 quarterback in the league, you give him that Baker Mayfield contract immediately, and he's your guy going forward.
That's your Baker Mayfield turnaround, because Baker Mayfield's a top 15 quarterback. He's not a top 10 quarterback, but I think he's roughly.
He did throw 41 touchdowns.
I'd put him in the top 10. I'd put him there.
Put him in top 10. I mean, I think it's a discussion. And the fact
pretty much everyone who's thrown 41 touchdowns has made the Hall of Fame, and then there's Baker Mayfield. So,
hey, he's on his way.
That's crazy. I forgot. I think 41 last year. Baker.
Yeah,
that's nuts. I mean, he's very good. Baker Mayfield's a good quarterback. I was very wrong about him because I remember saying on this very show, I was like, Dave Canales merchant. I don't know, and now here he goes.
Man, I almost. I was when in 2018 when the Browns got Baker. I almost shed a tear. Like I was fully in on the Jets getting Baker. Not that it would have worked out with the Jets, but Baker was he was my guy out of college. I loved him that year.
I'm happy to see him succeed. But yeah, as Marcelo, if he's a top 15 quarterback next year, if Justin Fields is a top 15 quarterback next year, then you are over the moon. That is a best case scenario for the Jets.
Oh yeah.
I don't think you could really realistically ask for anything more, especially, I don't know what his supporting cast is going to look like. Right now, his wide receiver 2 is kind of Allen Lazard, who is kind of still on the roster.
Is he going to be in the team or
not? They might be better off. I mean, that contract, considering what the receiver market is now, is not nearly as bad as it used to be.
I tweeted that 2 days ago on Monday and got a lot of shit. Because I was like, is there a world where they keep Allen Lazard? Because I think there's a reason, unless, we're going to find out in an hour and a half, right? When the official
is Tim Patrick better than Allen Lazard? I don't think so.
No, he's not. He's not. And that's the thing. How many options out there right now that they're realistically going to consider? Because I saw someone mention in chat earlier, Cooper Kupp was released by the Rams officially. The Jets aren't signing Cooper Kupp. One, Kupp is not going to want to sign with the Jets. 2, that is not the player that the Jets are looking. They're not looking to sign players like Cooper Kupp or Amari Cooper or Stephon Diggs. Like, I would be very surprised. I know this is a perfect opportunity for me to get proven wrong, because remember 2 years ago, Mike, when we were like, oh, the Jets aren't trading Elijah Moore, literally live on this show. The Jets aren't trading Elijah Moore. And then an hour later, 10 minutes later, they trade Elijah Moore. So I know I'm saying here right now, they're not going to sign Stephon Diggs or Amari Cooper or Cooper Kupp. If like in 20 minutes they do, I'm an idiot and I'm proven wrong. But I don't expect those to be the moves. So I think there's a world where they do keep Allen Lazard. You still need to add somebody. I imagine they'll add Tim Patrick probably at some point. But anyway, that kind of puts a bow on some of the Fields discussion, I think.
Chu has a comment. I want to get Mike Giarraputo's thoughts on this too. I forgot where I read it, but it said Russell Wilson was promised the starting job healthy. I didn't necessarily see that, but one thing I did see, this was from The Athletic. Mike DeFabo of The Athletic basically said the Steelers wanted Fields to be their quarterback in 2025. They also wanted him at their price. They thought he might take less to come back to Mike Tomlin.
I think she was saying that Wilson was guaranteed a starting job last year when he got healthy.
Yeah, I'm saying like that goes into. It's a weird thing. When's the last time a quarterback, again, like he played okay in that 6-game stretch, but start of the year as the week 1 quarterback, got benched. That's what it was. And then everybody's immediately clamoring to bring back the benched guy over the starter, despite the fact the starter probably outperformed him. It's kind of a weird situation.
I don't get the sense that Russell Wilson was particularly loved in the Steelers locker room. That's kind of the sense that I've got.
It's weird. He seems like a nice guy. Why does nobody like him?
You know what it is?
Yeah,
he's not authentic. He's not an authentic guy. Even in Seattle, dude, he had his own freaking office up there. Like he had all of his like the Mr. Unlimited shit. Like who wants to deal? Like Justin Fields is in there fighting for. It's basically as if he's in the same situation as the Jets are, as he is with the Jets this season. I'm fighting for my life as a starting quarterback in the NFL. I don't. Russ is. You think of the Steelers culture. Defensive-minded, defensive culture, like cold weather, like put your head down and get like it doesn't really remind you of Russell Wilson. I don't know. I just don't think he's the most authentic guy based on. And you've seen what Marshawn Lynch has said about him. You've seen what Richard Sherman said about him.
There's a lot
I just think they're jealous of Sierra. I think that's it.
Sierra, that could be part of it. I don't know.
What does he got that I don't?
Yeah, I obviously, I don't know Russell Wilson personally. I'm not in those locker rooms with him, but it is notable that a lot of players have come out or former teammates of his have come out and said not the greatest things about him. I'm not going to speak on it because I don't know, but yeah, I don't get the sense that he was particularly liked in that Steelers locker room. So I don't know. I think that's partially contributed. But all that being said, if the Steelers don't get Aaron Rodgers, which I'm sorry, we're talking about him again. I think
you can't say his name too much.
I know it's twice now. If they don't get the 4-time MVP, future Hall of Famer, which I think they will. But if they don't, they probably go right back to Russ. Like I think Russ is their best option after that. I think whoever doesn't get he who shall not be named between the Steelers and the Giants will probably end up with Russell Wilson. Maybe we'll find out by the time the stream is ending.
All right, before we move on, where do you think he goes? I think he goes to the Giants.
Oh, I think he's going to the Steelers.
I think he's going to the Steelers.
Yeah, I think right now, if we're
situation-wise, it's not even close. Steelers are better.
The Giants are reportedly, they're making a push. They desperately want him. Boy, can we? I know this.
Yeah,
we have so many things to talk about. But can I just rant really quick about how desperate the Giants are and what a mess that organization is? Because the Jets are a mess too, and they've been a mess for a while.
If they fired Dable and Shane after that year, they wouldn't be. It's just we'll take Cameron Shadur and
right. The issue is John Mara decided to keep Joe Shane and Brian Dable for another year. Fine, if that's your decision, whatever. I don't think that they've done some good things. I think Dable has definitely been kind of set up to fail in a lot of ways. But whatever, if that's your decision, cool. Your team is gonna suck next year. Like they're not gonna be good. One, you don't have a quarterback. And you have no clear path to getting a quarterback. So you know that going into the offseason. Despite this, he's not saying playoff mandate, but it's kind of understood like, hey, if they're not a really competitive team next year and they're not making the playoffs or really fighting for a playoff spot, they're gone at the end of the year. So now you're Joe Shane and Brian Dable with the hottest of hot seats going into the offseason. You need to go all in right now. Unfortunately, your team is ass, your roster stinks, and you don't have a quarterback. So your timelines are thrown way off. So that's why the Giants are going out there signing Javon Holland, making all these. Mind you, the Giants last offseason didn't want to pay Xavier McKinney because Joe Shane didn't want to pay top.
Or Saquon.
Right, or Saquon. But the perfect example, McKinney, who was first team All-Pro last year. They didn't want to pay him because they didn't want to pay top dollar to a safety. What do they do this offseason? They pay top dollar to a worse safety in Javon Holland because now Joe Shane has to abandon all of his principles. All of his guidelines to running an NFL team are out the window because now he's like, oh, we have to win this year. So let's just get all these players in here. Let's go balls to the wall, try and get Matthew Stafford. Oh, he doesn't want us? Cool. Now we're going to try and get Aaron Rodgers because we're that desperate that we're on our hands and knees begging for a 42-year-old post-Achilles Aaron Rodgers coming off the worst year of his career. Anyway, that is my rant about it.
Couple comments from Chew, and then we'll probably go to the next segment. He says Kupp is old and injury prone, but no one other than Garrett Wilson to throw to.
He's not coming here.
He's not coming here.
That's
he wants to, and then also I don't think they're taking a quarterback until pick 72 or later.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if it was.
Yeah,
I'd say I'm surprised it was in the first three rounds. And in that scenario, and I know people are like, "Oh, just take a swing on a Kyle McCord or whoever." Like 95 to 98% of quarterbacks taken like after the second round or even after the first round are nothing. Like don't amount to anything. Especially day 3 quarterbacks. There are so in the current NFL right now. How many?
I mean, the Jets just took one last year, and they pretty much already given up on him.
Right. How many day 3 starting quarterbacks are in the NFL right now? There's Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson was a day 2 guy. There are so few. I mean, Brock Purdy obviously was
O'Connell.
Yes. What did you say? O'Connell?
Aiden O'Connell.
Well, I was thinking Kevin O'Connell. I'm like, I mean, he was a day 3 quarterback pick, I think, but he's a coach.
Yeah, cut it. And then before we move on, though, final thing on Fields. How many games are they winning with Fields right now next year?
6.
7.
I'm going to go 7 too.
Funny that we both say that they're going to, or all 3 of us are saying that they're going to win more games than they just won with Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams.
Well, it's going to be a better guys.
You won't have Jeff Ulbrich either.
No. I know there's context to it. I'm just saying that
Jeff Ulbrich and Justin, as much as we like him, a team with Jeff Ulbrich coaching and Justin Fields at the quarterback just feels so doomed to failure. It's not even funny.
That's like Brian Callahan coaching Will Levis.
I've watched this team my whole life. Last year was the worst coached Jets team I've ever seen in my entire life, and I watched Adam Gase for 2 years.
Yeah.
It's
so
right.
I think that'll be the difference between. I mean, maybe we lost some guys, but
we were all fortunate enough that we didn't get to witness the Rich Kotite years. I believe I'm pretty sure Mike G, you didn't get to.
We're not fortunate. We're not.
We're fortunate
in Jets.
Those days, but it was really really bad.
Marcelo says 9 wins. He's very optimistic.
9 wins. And Jed, look, if there's one thing about Jets fans in March, they will be optimistic.
They did sign 2 new defensive backs. Brandon Stevens away from the Baltimore Ravens on a 3-year, $36 million contract. And Andre Cisco away from the Jacksonville Jaguars on a 1-year, $10 million contract. Both of these guys, one thing they have in common is 2023, they were very good, both of them. Mm-hmm. And 2024, they were both really bad, both of them. Mm-hmm. Brandon Stevens was clearly the weak link. He had a passer rating of 109 when targeted, meaning if you just throw at him every single throw, you're basically better than Patrick Mahomes last year. And Cisco actually got benched, but that may have been scheme-related things because he was pretty good before that.
I didn't realize he got benched last year.
It was like the end of it when they were tanking anyway, but like it was just bad scheme fit. Everybody was stinking that year.
I think there's a chance the Jets' 2 starting safeties next year were both benched last year.
It's at the same time too.
Yeah.
Of these 2 deals, I prefer, and not just for money reasons, I prefer the Cisco one to the Stevens one.
100%.
Cisco is kind of an old school strong safety. He can cover ground, but a good hitter, plays really hard. From Queens, local guy, Syracuse alum too, so it's nice that he's coming back. If he had hit free agency after 2023, like that year he had with Jacksonville, he probably gets a nice multi-year deal. Like I've seen Andre Cisco be a very good safety if you put him in the right scheme. Then they got Ryan Nielsen as their DC last year. I just don't think what he had him doing, which would just hang back and cover that. I don't think that was the best use of him. I think Aaron Glenn is going to probably put him to better use. Stevens is the one I have a little bit more of a problem with because he just was straight up really bad last year. Big corner, over 6 foot, 200 pounds, former safety. He plays pretty much everywhere. He's played inside, he's played outside, he's played safety. You do get some nice versatility with him, but outside of how for some reason Daniel Brunskill was able to lock up Aaron Donald for some reason. Yeah. For some reason, Brandon Stevens was always great against Jamar Chase. I don't know why, but
yeah, I saw some of that film.
A lot of other average receivers had pretty good days against Brandon Stevens. What both these signings signify, and I wrote about this on the Jet Press, is Darren Muji and specifically Aaron Glenn, they are all in on Aaron Glenn's ability to coach up defensive backs. They think that the 2023 seasons are more indicative of what these guys were than the 2024 seasons, and Aaron Glenn is the guy. Bring him in, I'll coach him up. Now, do I think it'll work? I'm cautiously optimistic, especially with Cisco, because I've seen him be a probably a better player, and he costs a lot less than Stevens does. But really, the only hang-up I have with either of these deals is the money to Stevens. Like, if they got him cheaper, I probably wouldn't hate it as much. I don't really hate it. I probably would like it a little bit more. I'm not too down on these signings, especially if Glenn is the master defensive back coach. I know that he gets a lot of billing for the leadership and the rah-rah stuff and the quotes and all that, but I mean, the reason that Lions defense turned around, that secondary was beyond awful when he got there. He helped coach him up. Terry Arnold looked good. Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, like these are all part of Aaron Glenn's developmental stuff. So if Andre Cisco can be the next Kirby Joseph, Brandon Stevens can have a big leap in his first year with the Jets, excuse me. I don't see why these can't be good signings.
Yeah, I think we're all together in terms of our favorite signing out of these two guys, Andre Cisco. I think we need a guy that could, you mentioned Kirby Joseph there. I think that's a good comparison. Just somebody that can take the ball away from the other team. We didn't really have that last year. We kind of lost it with Jordan Whitehead. I mean, I don't know. He wasn't great.
This is Brandon Eccles' erasure, right?
Yeah, right. But Brandon Stevens getting 12 season was interesting. I mean, what I really didn't like to see is every single Ravens fans reacted to that. How Jets
they were thrilled. They were thrilled.
They hated
They hated him and wanted him gone, and they saw him get $36 million. It's confusing, but like you guys said, I do trust Aaron Glenn to coach up these guys. I mean, we've taken on. This is under Robert Saleh, but over the past 3-4 years, we've taken on guys as kind of reclamation projects, and it's worked out. Or guys that really we don't know too much about. I didn't know too much about Brandon Stevens. It happened. I'm like, I've heard of his name before. I don't really know too much about him.
Oh, it was that guy getting dusted in the playoffs. Oh, that guy.
Right. Yeah. So it's not really the. I was hoping it'd be one of those where Ravens fans are like, actually one of the more underrated cornerback. Nope. He's just they just absolutely.
And they took Nate Wiggins in the first round last year, pretty much to replace him. So
yeah. And he wasn't that great last year either. So I think Andre Cisco is the better signing out of these guys. I like both of them. I mean, look, I simply trust Aaron. It's hard to say this because he's had the job for 2 months, but I trust him in terms of adding to the secondary specifically. I'll trust him there.
If he can do anything, it's coach up DBs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll say two things. One, I like the Andre Cisco signing. I like that move a lot. They needed a safety. They needed, like you said, a playmaking type safety. He had 7 interceptions between 2022 and 2023. I thought those 2 years were very, very good for him. This past season, he took a step back. That whole Jags team was a mess. It was a disaster. The defense was bad. I'm not surprised that players in that defense kind of took a step back. I think you're betting on that 2022 and 2023 tape. And at least with him, I think you have 2.5 years, because also that first year he didn't really start the full year, but he played enough. And I thought all 3 of those seasons he played pretty well. So you have at least 3 years of good tape with Cisco. It's only a 1-year deal, which is a little surprising. I was hoping to be, if I had my pick, I would have rather this been like a 2 or 3 year deal, because I feel pretty solid about him being a good starting safety for the Jets. Now, if he has a good year, you're going to have to pay him again next offseason. It's really kind of a short-term investment, but I guess you have an out if he sucks. The Stevens deal is the one that I definitely am like, you guys touched on it already. It's probably one of my least favorite moves any team has made this offseason. It's not Javon Kinlaw levels bad, but I definitely am not a fan of it. I might also be a tad biased. I feel similar to the John Simpson situation where, Mike, you and I, Luch, we have a unique perspective here because we covered the Ravens. We watched Brandon Stevens play. I was covering the Ravens when they drafted Brandon Stevens. He was a super athlete out of SMU, former running back as well. I know we say converted.
He's listed at 215. That's huge for a corner.
He's a great athlete too. I forget what his 40 time was, but it must have been really, really good. He's a great athlete. Converted safety to corner. Like, I see why the Jets are betting on that upside. They're taking a chance on athleticism. They're taking a chance on those traits. I get it. I've watched him play. I didn't get to see a ton of his 2023 tape, which was apparently really good, but I saw before that, and then this year was really, really bad. He can't play. Like, when I've seen him out there, I'm like, all right, this guy's not a starting caliber corner. Last year, he was statistically one of the worst corners in the NFL. So when I see they're paying him $12 million a year over 3 years to be their starter, I have hesitation with that. Now, maybe they bet on that upside. Maybe they develop him. Maybe they train him up, and they get him to be that 2023 version where he was a starting caliber corner. He wasn't anything special, but he was a starting caliber player in 2023. I don't love the money that they gave him at all. I think there were other corners that I've seen out there where Eric Stokes got 1 year, $4 million last year. I don't think Eric Stokes is a good cornerback, but I think he's
Eric Stokes, fun fact, has not broken up a pass since 2021.
You said
that's insane to me. It's 30 games in a row. How do you do that? How do you not luck into one?
I think Stokes is a relatively comparable player to Brandon Stevens, where neither of them are a good cornerback too, but they're a fine fourth cornerback, kind of like an Eccles. I think Eccles might be a little bit better than both of them, which, yeah, like if I'm saying Brandon Eccles is better than Brandon Stevens, and Eccles is definitely not going to get the money that Stevens got, that's kind of how I feel about that signing. But like you said, I mean, I can't say I unequivocally trust this coaching staff. I have no idea if I can trust this coaching staff, but I know that there's a lot of DB experience in that staff. Obviously, Aaron Glenn, Steve Wilkes, they got Dre Bly in there now. There's a lot of very intelligent minds on that staff, so hopefully they can get something out of him. I didn't like the John Simpson signing last year, and I was proven wrong because he was very, very good. He had the best year of his career. Maybe it's the same with Stevens, but I have to be objective. I am covering the Jets, but I have to be objective. I'd give it like a D. It's probably one of my least favorite signings that any team has made, just in terms of like how good I think this player is and how much money they got. I think it's a pretty wide discrepancy. But I do like the Cisco move. Happy they got him in there. Would not be upset. I know people are like mixed on Tony Adams. I would not be upset if Cisco and Adams were your two starting safeties next year, and then you bring in someone else like to replace Ashton Davis. Maybe you bring back Isaiah Oliver. Maybe you bring back Jalen Mills. I wouldn't hate that.
It's the same thing that I think you said last year with the Simpson signing, which if your offensive line has John Simpson as its worst player, I'm happy with that. And then he actually ended up being pretty good.
Maybe they're bad.
If the worst player in the secondary is Brandon Stevens, I still think that's pretty good because you still have Sauce. And as he said in a kind of an odd welcome to New York tweet where he's like, everybody across from me my whole career has been pretty good, no matter how good you are. Which honestly is kind of, you look at some of like the great corners in the league, like, that level, like, Deion, Champ Bailey, guys like that. Even if they had average cornerback twos, it's not like teams just throw at them 15 times a game. Like, it does help to have that guy on the edge. And then you get Michael Carter back healthy, not playing 10 snaps a game because of his ankle.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be big. Cisco and Adams. Maybe you bring back Jalen Mills as like a do-everything depth guy. Mm-hmm. And then maybe a day 3 pick. And that's a fine secondary. That's a perfectly fine secondary.
I will make a prediction right now that either Quantez Stiggers or Jark Bernard Converse will start for the Jets some point next year. I am not confident Brandon Stevens. I know he's getting the money, and because that's the issue with me, Mike. It's not like, if Stevens is your worst starter in the secondary, that's not a terrible thing. Like,
I would almost like it if Cisco got the Stevens deal and Stevens.
Yeah, I would have liked it a lot better if they signed Stevens to a 1-year deal. I'd be like, whatever. Now they're going to be tied to him for the next 2 years. Like I don't believe there's going to be an out. I haven't seen the structure of the contract, but I doubt there's an out after 1 year. So they probably got him for 2 years I think he's like the 21st highest paid corner in the NFL right now. Like that, that's bad value. That's just bad value. Unless he turns it around, unless he plays like how he did in 2023, which he has 4 years on tape. 3 of them are bad. 1 of them is good. If he plays like that one good year, yeah, I think it's a fine contract. Then it's like equal value. I don't think it's like a steal, but it's equal value. I see a very real world, real possibility. And maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe I look back on this in December and I'm like, oh, you idiot. Now he's playing really well. I see a world where he's ended up getting replaced by Quantez Stiggers or Jark Bernard Converse, who I like. And I would not have been upset. Like, I don't think Jets fans would have lost their minds if the Jets brought back Eccles on like a 1 year, $4 million deal, $5 million, whatever he's going to end up getting. And it was just him, Stiggers, and JBC competing for the job. I don't think Jets fans would be complaining about that. Instead, they signed Stevens, who I think is worse than Eccles right now. I don't know if that's a hot take, but I think he's worse than Eccles right now. And they gave him $12 million a year. He's
almost like the cornerback version of Fields, where it's like we've seen him be good occasionally if we get him in the right. Isn't this a lot of what we're saying about Fields too, though?
I do think
we've seen flashes. If we get him in the right coaching system, he could be good.
Provide a semblance of optimism. I do think he would be a lot better in a scheme that was very different than what, because the Ravens run a lot of zone, a lot of 4-man rush. If the Jets are going to play more man, which I don't know, I genuinely don't know what the defense is.
Steve Wilkes is a zone guy. Aaron Glenn's a man guy.
Exactly.
So
if they're running like a Steve Wilkes defense, it's probably not a good fit for Brandon Stevens. But if they're running similar to what Glenn has run in the past, which is man, I mean, Wilkes does blitz a lot more than.
And I'm sure they consulted Steve Wilkes. Hey, can you work with this guy?
So. Right. So I imagine this signing would make me think they're probably going to run more man than zone. And if that's the case, and you're running more man, you're running more, blitzes, you're working more blitzes in your defense, which they should. I mean, they brought back Jamie Sherwood, which we'll talk about in a moment. They have Quincy Williams, assuming he's going to stick around. Those are two linebackers who are really good blitzers. You should be blitzing more, especially because their front four is not going to be very good. So if that's the scheme they're going to run, I think it's a better fit for Stevens. I think that maximizes his athleticism, his physical traits a little bit more. So maybe they can get more out of him. I think the value is very poor, but we'll see. Maybe I'm an idiot and I'm proven wrong. It's happened many times.
We're going to move on really quick because we're going to go talk about some players the Jets will not be back with the Jets last year. They will not join Brandon Stevens and Andre Cisco.
Well, we don't want to talk Sherwood real quick. We don't want to talk Sherwood at all, or no?
Yeah, well, I mean, Sherwood, that was a deal. I thought that was just a complete layup and everybody expected it.
I don't think.
I didn't. I thought he was gone.
No.
To me, I thought that was like first order of business. First thing Darren Moon was doing was
fans wanted, but there was genuine interest from the Falcons and the Niners and other teams, and he had a big heart.
The Niners were the only one I thought maybe, but I'm like, there's no way they're going to start off the Muji era without Sherwood.
Falcons really wanted him to reunite, Ulbrich and Rutenberg who were over there. But no, I don't think so at all. I was actually a little pleasantly surprised that the Jets re-signed. Yeah. I was prepared to just, be like, all right, they're going to move on. Honestly, I know. All right, look, this is going to be a long show. I want to talk about this really quick because I do think there's an interesting talking point surrounding the Jets linebacker position, especially as it revolves around maybe Quincy Williams. So first, Jets re-signed Jamie Sherwood, 3 years, $45 million. Very happy that they brought him back. Again, I was pleasantly surprised. He was expected to be one of the top linebackers, if not the top linebacker on the open market. 25 years old, just turned 25 in January. So an ascending player, former safety, tore his Achilles as a rookie. We know the whole story with Jamie Sherwood. I think the interesting conversation to be had around this revolves around Quincy Williams, who now, Quincy Williams, a year removed from a first-team All-Pro season, was still very good last year. He is vastly underpaid for his position. He is getting, I think, $6 million a year is what his current contract is paying him, which, or whatever it is, which is one of the best most team-friendly contracts in the NFL.
Yeah.
I don't know what the Jets, I don't know what the situation would have been like if Sherwood didn't resign and, you go into next year and, Williams is still the highest paid linebacker on the team. Maybe he doesn't look for an extension. He is entering the last year of his deal. I think it becomes a more complicated situation now that the Jets gave Sherwood that contract because now they just gave Sherwood $15 million a year. They have a linebacker on their team, Quincy Williams, who is better than Jamie Sherwood, who is entering the last year's deal, and he's getting paid 3 times less what Sherwood is. I know Quincy Williams is probably not going to want to make a stink. He loves playing in New York. He loves playing with his brother. I do think his agent, I believe Nicole Lynn is his agent, who's also Quinn Williams' agent. I do believe that agent is going to have conversations with the Jets and say, hey, look, my client's getting paid 3 times less what his teammate at the same position is getting paid. And he was first team All-Pro, and he's objectively a better player.
Did Quinnen make a stink?
It wasn't really a stink as much as because that was more of a kind of a foregone conclusion. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that the Jets pay Quincy Williams. In fact, I see a very real world where they don't. And I'm very interested to see how they handle it this offseason because if you look around the NFL, there are not a lot of teams that pay 2 linebackers, that pay two linebackers top money. It's very rare. On the also on that note, Quincy Williams is going to be 30 years old or 29 years old before the start of the season. He turns 29, I think, in August. There is a very poor track record of teams paying linebackers approaching 30. It has not usually worked out in recent years. Now, Quincy Williams was a late bloomer, so it's a different situation. But I do think that has to be considered. And I'm not confident at all that the Jets do extend Quincy Williams. And I'm really genuinely fascinated. And I want to get your guys' thoughts on what do you think happens with him this offseason? Do you think he just plays out the last year of his deal is like, whatever, I'm really underpaid and I've never had a big payday in my career, but hey, whatever, if I get hurt, I get hurt. Like, I don't know if that's going to happen. Or do you think he requests a trade? Do you think he makes us think about an extension? How do you guys see that unfolding?
I think he's going to look for an extension. He signed it early. We did the smartest thing in the world, and we probably should have done it with Sherwood before this offseason, was to extend him so damn early. I think it was a 3 year. It was either 3 years 18 or 3 years 21. I think it was for Quincy Williams.
3 years 18. They got him right before his breakout. I remember at that time being like, that's a little bit of an overpay.
But just
he was a fringe starter before that, and then
but just hoping he could become that starter. I think. Does he make a stink? I don't think it's going to be that public. I think he's going to be inside the building saying, hey, I want to be extended. I don't know if there's going to be a trade request. I don't know if there's going to – because I think the Jets are going to probably prioritize that. Maybe not give him a 4 or 5 year deal when he's 29, 30 years old. I don't think that would happen. But I don't see him making a huge deal out of, because he's in New York with his brother. Like, does he really want to leave his brother in New York? They played together basically their entire NFL careers. So I don't see him making a huge deal out of it.
It's complicated. It is a very complicated situation because I would not blame the guy at all for requesting a trade if he did. If the Jets are like, hey, we're not going to extend you this offseason, if you request a trade, I would not blame him. I know a lot of Jets fans would probably feel a certain way, and they'd be like, oh, you're betraying your brother. You're betraying the Jets, because he loves Quincy loves playing here. He's a great dude. Yeah. The room loves him. He loves playing with his brother. But you have to remember, he's not got a big payday in his career. His biggest payday was $6 million a year, was $18 million. He's in line for a huge extension, and he deserves it. I don't know if the Jets would give him that this offseason. And I don't know if they should. I do think he is one.
Sherwood, I don't think is ever going to be as good as Quincy. That's the thing.
Maybe.
He was very
All-Pro a year ago. Sherwood.
I don't know if Sherwood's ever been first team All-Pro. I do think we haven't seen the best of Jamie and Sherwood. I think he's a defending player who's going to get even better. But I don't know if he's ever going to be first team All-Pro. Also, do you think Quincy Williams is ever going to be first team All-Pro again? I don't know. I mean, he was good this year. He took a bit of a step back. Linebacker is such a volatile position, and the fall off is often so quick and unexpected that I wouldn't be shocked if in 2 years Quincy Williams is kind of treading water and is not particularly great. And I think that's a conversation the Jets will have to have. It's a very weird discussion, and I don't think it's one that a lot of Jets fans are having right now because it's not. There's a lot of other stuff going on, but I'm fascinated to see how it works out.
I mean, think about a guy like Darius, or I guess Shaquille Leonard is now his name. Like Darius Leonard when he was with the Colts. Like, that was the quickest thing.
Darius Leonard at least always – there was at least, from what I remember, a sentiment that he was always kind of like a box score guy who didn't always – like kind of what Bob – not what he was in his prime, but like what Bobby Wagner is now. Yeah. Where he gets like a bunch of tackles and then people think – what's the dude in Jacksonville? Luakun?
Yeah, Foye Luakun.
It's like that sort of thing. I don't think that was always the thing with Leonard and guys like that. Like Williams and Sherwood specifically this year have always, to me, like always said, they've always been guys who don't look at the box score. Their impact is actually greater than what the box score is saying. Mm-hmm. So that at least gives me hope that they're not just like getting 15 tackles a game, which is not always the best indicator of good linebacker play. And then that those seem to be the guys who fall off. Or guys like that, like the sort of two-down thumpers.
There's been others like Deion Jones. That fall off was really quick.
He got hurt, didn't he?
I think so. Well, I know he tore his Achilles, I think, at one point, but I forget. I think he started falling off before that. Obviously, Quan Alexander, another one who got paid and he got hurt. There's just a lot of examples of that. I don't know. Right. I just think it's fascinating discussion. I don't have an answer because I don't know what he's gonna do. I don't know how motivated he is to get an extension. I don't know how much his agent will push for it. And I also don't know what the Jets' thought on him is. I think a perfect scenario, if they are going to pay him, would be to pay him ASAP, to pay him this offseason, give him a 3-year deal, and then just say like that. Like, I think that's like a perfect length where I'd feel comfortable enough giving him that. I'd still be a little concerned, but I think he deserves it, and I'd feel comfortable enough with that. But I don't know if they're going to want to pay 2 linebackers a lot of money. It's a lot to devote to a position that is generally not considered a premium position.
YouTube and chat. I'm just a Bears fan, Fields fan, tapping into Jet shows. I fuck with you guys. Stay with us over there, YouTube.
Let's go.
We'll try our best to finally be the guy who unlocked Justin Fields.
We got YouTube on our side.
Mr. YouTube himself.
Wow.
John YouTube is here.
That is crazy. Damn.
The founder of YouTube.
We got YouTube.
Moving on.
Yeah, let's talk guys who are no longer with the Jets. And we're almost an hour in, boys. We got a long show still. A lot to talk about.
So there are more impactful players that we could discuss, like Devontae Adams, went to the Rams, Hassan Reddick. We got to address something here. When the Jets signed Javon Kinlaw to a 1-year, what was it, $7 million deal?
Yeah, $7 million.
Just about, yeah.
It was 1 year, $7 million, and I wrote an article at that time. You could find it. I called it a massive overpay.
Now, it was a massive overpay because Robert Saleh was banking on, this was one of my guys in San Francisco. I can fix him. Leave it to me. Unfortunately, we never got to see him really do that because he got fired. So because of that, Javon Kinlaw, who was not particularly good to begin with, was probably even worse than we thought he could be.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if that's his fault or Saleh or who knows. It didn't work. he got a deal from the Washington Commanders. Both me and Justin heard Adam Schefter say this. We thought he misspoke. Yeah. I thought he said, first off, you hear 3 years. You're like, that's a problem right away. 3 years. And then I thought he said $25 million. And I'm like, damn, that's an overpay. He got $45 million for 3 years. Have you ever seen – and look, this isn't going to be the worst contract ever. Like Deshaun Watson's a worst contract. But in terms of just how good someone is compared to – because Deshaun Watson was always good at the time when he got the contract. How good someone is versus the money they got, I can't remember anything like this. Javon Kinlaw signed a $7 million one-year prove-it deal, which was considered an overpay. He got worse and then doubled his salary every year, and he got a 3-year deal. I know Washington's got money to throw away because they got so much cap space, but for crying out loud, this is one of the worst I've ever seen.
Jonathan Allen, Jonathan Allen got what, like 16 million, 17 million?
Yeah.
He got 20. I think he got 20 a year. I think he got a 3-year 60.
Whatever it is, much better value than Javon Kinlaw. I'm with you, Mike. I was because that was the day Twitter was going nuts. So by nuts, I mean
thanks, Elon.
Yeah, thank you, Elon, for that. So that's why we can't stream on Twitter anymore. By the way, if there's anyone who's curious why we can't stream on Twitter anymore, blame Elon Musk. But
do you know that Javon Kinlaw got more than Grady Jarrett?
Dude, he got more than BJ Hill. He got more than
he got more than DJ Jones. Do you think he's making more than Cameron Hayward, who might be in the Hall of Fame?
He got more than Justin Fields, and Justin Fields is a quarterback. Like I was watching
Grover Stewart, David Onyema, a lot of Zach Sealer, a lot of pretty good players here.
I was watching ESPN because that's how I was trying to get my sports news because we were living in the Stone Ages apparently because Twitter was.
Were you guys not getting notifications?
I was getting some, but Twitter was like being really like it was on the fritz. I was ESPN notifications from Schefter I was getting, but
okay, right, yeah.
I was still like because sometimes it was very inconsistent. So I was like, I got to make sure I get as much as I can. We put on ESPN and watch this, and I hear Adam Schefter because I got the notification first. Like Javon Kinlaw 3-year deal with the Commanders, and I was like, wow, 3 years? That's crazy. I can't believe they did that. I wonder what it's for. And then this man says $45 million, and it is the first piece of sports news since the Luka Doncic trade that I heard, and I said that's not true. That there is a better chance.
That's not really Adam Schefter. That's AI deep fake.
It's exactly there's a better chance that is a deep fake of Adam Schefter live on ESPN than that Javon Kinlaw got 3 years, $45 million. But sure enough, that is exactly what happened.
Did you see what he said on Instagram? Kinlaw?
He said the tape don't lie.
And put the film on it, don't lie. I know it doesn't.
It definitely doesn't.
That's why we're surprised.
And it's not like, not only, there's another part of this that I haven't heard anybody mention. He's also had injury issues. He missed like 2 full years almost. He played 10 games combined between 2022 and 2021 and 2022. He's going to be 28 in October. It's not like what even is the ceiling with him anymore? He's had 5 years in the NFL. He hasn't been good for any of them. What even is this signing? He was the biggest liabilities on a Jets defensive line that was playing undrafted guys. Leonard Taylor was better than Javon Kinlaw last year. Leonard Taylor was an undrafted rookie. He outplayed Javon Kinlaw. And I don't think a single Jets fan or anybody watching Jets film would disagree with that statement. But the Commanders...
I saw some Commanders fans like posting like, oh, they got a steal, and it was like some 49ers stuff. Do you know one of the highlights they posted had Miles Sanders on the Eagles?
Oh, God.
As proof of, we got a steal in Kinlaw.
You know, my theory on this, and I put this out on Twitter, right when Twitter was going nuts, so I don't think it got the attention it deserved, so I'm going to repeat it here. I think my theory with this is that Lance Newmark, who was the runner-up for the Jets general manager job, who is currently the assistant general manager of the Washington Commanders. Yes, as Brian said, Lance Newmark was desperate for that Jets feeling. I think Lance Newmark told the Jets in that interview, remember, because it seemed like he was a shoo-in to get the job. It was like, all right, it'll be Newmark, it's going to be Glenn. I think he told the Jets in that job, he's like, yeah, you know, one of the things I was looking to do, sign Javon Kinlaw, looking at 3 years, $45 million. And the Jets said, all right, hold on. Guys, what are we doing here? We got to rethink our.
People be like, oh, he had career highs in certain. Well, it's because he just played more snaps than he didn't get hurt. That's why he had career highs.
He played more. He was dog shit. Like look, he's got a great story. I don't want to shit on the guy. Like if you'll ever see this, I wish you all the success, man. I really do. I don't want to. I hate shitting on players like this.
We just don't think it's going to happen. But good luck,
it's just it's crazy. But yeah, that's my theory: is that Lance Newmark accidentally or not accidentally, but revealed to the Jets that this was his plan, and he was going to sign Javon Kinlaw, and that's what cost him the job. That's the only thing I could think of. And then he went to Washington and was like, "Hey guys, I got some intel from the Jets. Javon Kinlaw he's this guy. I don't know why he's thinks the man or whatever. Like, hey, this is the guy you got to sign. We got to bring this guy in." And I don't know. I'm trying to think of what it possibly could have been, because I don't know what the Commanders could have seen on his tape last year at any point.
Well, Adam Peters, because Adam Peters was in San Francisco before.
So Javon Kinlaw,
so he has even more proof not to sign.
Right.
Like
he's just like it's that old it's the Justin Fields. People. He's finally going to break out for me.
Javon Kinlaw somehow is the first non-related Nepo baby in the NFL. Like, he was a Robert Saleh Nepo baby, and now he's an Adam Peters Nepo baby. I don't know how he's getting these deals. But legitimately, I was expecting him to sign like 1 year, $4 million, $5 million deal with the Niners. Go play for Saleh again on that Bob Saleh scholarship, keeping him around in San Francisco. Maybe another 1 year deal. See if we can figure out this time. No one in their right mind would have predicted it. So,
there's no way he was top 15 in pass rush win rate for D. That's not true. Right?
See, this is why win rate means shit. It means absolutely nothing. And I am very adamantly against using win rate as a statistic. I think it is a very phony stat. If he was top 15 in win rate, in pass rush win rate, that's all you need. That is literally all the.
I feel like I never saw him even close to the quarterback. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, how many sacks?
Guess how many tackles for loss Javon Kinlaw has in his career as a defensive tackle? Without looking,
12.
I was going to say.
You got 13. It exactly.
Is exactly 12. Let's go. Let's go.
12 in 5 years.
Incredible. Last year he had 21 pressures. Mind you, by the way, he played more snaps this past year than he did with the Niners. Had 7 fewer pressures. I'm sorry, 30 pressures this year, 35 with the Niners before that. So he played more and was less productive, and he wasn't even productive with his last year with the Niners. How did he get this contract? I
really don't know. I'm not even trying to be fun. I don't know. I don't know what evaluation led somebody to this.
One of the wildest contracts that I've seen. Really quick, I want to touch on this super quick because we didn't talk about it when we talked about the guys Jets signed. Mother effing Chew, who donated his 5 memberships earlier. So the Jets signed Rashad Weaver. Journeyman Edge. Yeah, we'll talk Rashad Weaver, I guess, really quick. 4th round pick for the Titans, 2021. He's not good. He had one.
Hasn't had a sack in 2 years.
Yeah, he had one okay year in 2022, then was basically a rotational backup in 2023, did not have a single sack, and then last year was cut before the season started, was a practice squad guy all of last year. From a Titans source that both Mike and I know, not a source in the building, but somebody who covers the Titans, also said that he had some personality concerns and kind of rubbed a lot of coaches the wrong way.
I believe the phrase was, quote, attitude problems.
Attitude problem, and he rubbed coaches the wrong way. Yeah, so that's another part about it. Maybe that contributed to why the Titans cut bait early. But yeah, he played 3 games with the Texans last year. Very confusing day 1 of official free agency signing, or day 3 of free agency, if you want to call it that. He's going to be competing for a roster spot. Doesn't move the needle at all. Doesn't impact their plans at all. I guess it's a flyer to take a chance on. Also, that same Titans guy, by the way, also told me that he was not very athletic and a below average pass rusher, which also looking at his numbers, he had 30 something, grades in the 30s for PFF in run defense. So I don't think he's a good run defender either. So yeah, anyone wondering who Rashad Weaver is? There you go. Maybe he makes the roster. I don't know. Very confusing signing on the 3rd day of free agency, but he is a player who exists. That is Rashad Weaver.
And then look at some of the other veteran deals. I mean, Devontae to the Rams, kind of where I thought he'd go if he didn't reunite with Rodgers. This is where I thought he'd go.
Great spot for him.
Great spot for him. Reddick getting $14 million with the Bucks. Hassan Reddick. After that,
Jets might get a 4th round comp pick for that. They're in line.
No, they
4th round comp pick.
Didn't they announce them yesterday?
No, for 2026. The comp picks this
okay.
For 2026. So these comp picks that were announced were based on last year's free agency.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yep.
So we should get some picks.
So yeah, they're in line to get a 4th round comp pick for him. I mean, the Kinlaw thing I think got canceled out by Fields, and then Stevens. I think Stevens canceled out the Kinlaw one, but yeah, they might get a 4th round comp pick for Reddick, which they gave up a 3rd to get him, which was, I remember when the Jets first made that Hassan Reddick trade. That was a discussion we had on this podcast. It was like, hey, assuming they don't extend him, it's only 1 year. You gave up a 3rd round pick, most likely. and you might get a 4th round pick, a comp pick back, or even at that point before he tanked his career, we're like, hey, it could be a 3rd round comp pick, right? It could be a really high comp pick. So we were like, yeah, this is worth the wager. Obviously, it crashed and burned in disastrous fashion, but the end result might be the Jets basically not giving up much to get basically nothing from Hassan Reddick. So I guess no harm.
Yeah.
Right?
We know he's going to get like 10 plus sacks next year in Tampa Bay, right? Are we prepared for that?
Oh, dude. He might.
And he's going to blame everything on the Jets.
And it'll be everyone on the
yes.
Jets, and it'll be like, dude, he wasn't there. Like,
dude, you didn't show up you cost yourself almost $10 million.
He did show up. He was like one of the least productive pass rushers in the entire NFL.
Mm.
I do find it funny that I'm hoping the Patriots end up losing some picks because I don't know if you saw that Diana Rossini graphic where like Morgan Moses to the Patriots 2 days before.
Mm.
And then he did.
I mean,
know,
look,
I'm just saying.
This stuff happens. At this point, I think the NFL is turning a blind eye to all that stuff. Because, dude, free agency.
Reddick signed at what, 12:01?
That's I was going to say.
Guys, the deal's done. And Justin Fields was in, where was he in? Dubai. And he's got a deal signed on the first day. Like, are we? Come on, you're telling me he got that done over the phone or FaceTime?
I remember when Alex Kappa signed with the Bengals a few years ago. I think it was at exactly like 12 o'clock or 12:01.
I remember getting the notification Alex Kappa signed before the notification that like the tampering period started.
Right, exactly. It was like, that's the quickest. That's the quickest, contract negotiation ever. It's the quickest legal tampering ever.
I would have liked to keep Morgan Moses, but. Especially at that AAV, but 3 years for a guy I know he never got hurt, but he started to get hurt a little bit last year. The 3 years part of it's weirding me out.
The last couple years, because he was banged up in Baltimore as well that last year. I think
he's missed 6 games over the past 2 years, but he didn't miss a game the previous 8.
He didn't miss a snap the previous 8 years. Moses he played through a torn rotator cuff with the Ravens, and he played through a major, I think, knee injury with the Jets last year. He just played through it.
It was still good. Yeah.
Because he's a warrior. He's ridiculous. Like, all respect in the world to Morgan Moses. Would have loved the Jets to bring him back, but 3 years, I think $24 million is what he got with the Patriots. Nah, man, I'm good. Like, I love Morgan Moses. Awesome dude. That is a contract that I would not have felt comfortable with the Jets paying him, and I don't think the Jets would have wanted to do that. But the Patriots are desperate for offensive line help. If he stays healthy, he's still a good player.
What do we think about their offseason so far? They've spent a lot of money.
I haven't gotten any.
Yeah,
I haven't gotten any receivers yet.
I don't think that the teams that tend to spend the most are usually the most successful. I think
they also spent $104 million on a rotational defensive tackle.
Yeah, the Milton Williams contract got $26 million a year.
Never started.
Absurd. He's a really good player.
Yeah,
absurd. I also don't really love the Spillane signing. He's good. He's fine.
Tackles merchant.
Right. He's
Carlton Davis too.
That's exactly what I was going to say. He's a box score merchant. He's a tackles merchant. He's not really good in coverage. That is not a linebacker that I feel comfortable paying that much money to.
I mean, look, they overpaid just about everybody they got.
Harold
Landry, Carlton Davis, 3 years, $60 million is
a lot.
A lot of money.
A lot.
I mean, supposedly they offered Godwin more money than Tampa did, so they tried.
He's off not a torn ACL. What did Godwin just come off of?
It was a bad ankle injury.
Yeah, right. But still a major injury.
Yeah. The only problem the big problem I have with that Brandon Stevens contract though is looking at what DJ Reed got with the Lions and
it's different. That's the thing. It's really
why would you not just pay DJ Reed that if you're going to pay Brandon Stevens? Because DJ Reed is a lot better than Brandon Stevens.
And I think he was. And I think Reed is only 1 year older than Stevens. Like, I completely agree. Obviously,
he wanted to leave. You
know why he wanted to leave? Because the Jets made it pretty clear to him back in the summer that they were moving on. Like, it was abundantly clear for months that the Jets were not going to bring back.
And they stink, and he's probably tired of stinking.
Yeah, and they're ass. But if the Jets were trying to make amends, or not even make amends, but if they were saying, all right, we're going to work out this extension with you, we're going to really try to bring you back, I think he would have been open to it. But by the time January, December came in, he's like, this organization's a dumpster fire, which it was, and they told me they don't want me back. So, and Jets fans got pissed when he's like, I'm not going to be back next year. I'm looking forward to my next destination. Everyone's like, oh, fuck you, DJ Reed.
I know.
What do you expect him to say, man? Like, the Jets have been blatantly telling him to his face they're not going to bring him back. I don't know if they said those words to him, but it was abundantly clear they were not bringing him back. And if the whole point, not to rehash the Stevens thing, but the whole point was, hey, we're going to go cheap at corner. We're not going to pay a third guy because we already have Kyer Elam is getting traded to the Cowboys, according to Josie Anderson. breaking news.
He'll be cut by week 6.
Might not make it.
He's bad.
That's like what didn't they trade for Noah Igbenogany as well from the Dolphins? Was that them?
Yeah. They also gave up a 4th for Jonathan Mingo.
Well, we don't got to talk about that. Poor Cowboys. But yeah, that's the whole Steve.
You know that they haven't signed an external free agent to a deal worth more than $6 million a year since Greg Hardy?
I saw that the other day.
I didn't see that.
Greg Hardy was the last
2016?
external free agent that signed more than $6 million a year contract. It was Greg Hardy.
Was that
2016?
16?
Yeah.
I think so.
Oh my god.
I mean, they've paid guys since then, but it's all been like keeping their own guys.
That's actually a crazy stat.
Yeah, and they're the Cowboys.
Greg Hardy, who's not a good guy.
Allegedly not a good guy.
Yeah, sure. Allegedly not a good guy.
Don't sue us, but yeah.
I've heard is not a good guy.
Yeah, he worked as he got a job. This was after his arrests and all that and UFC. He got a job as a Walmart greeter because he's like, I want to learn business. And then he quit after a day. He's like, they weren't teaching me about the business of Walmart.
I'd be so scared if I saw Greg Hardy like standing at the front of a Walmart.
Yeah. And he's like he thought he was gonna like work his way up the ladder and be CEO of Walmart, and he worked there for a day.
I don't know if this is a Walmart wide policy, but the Walmart near me, you have to like show them your receipt when you're leaving. I don't know if that's like
yeah, I think that's
okay. All right, that's a Walmart. So like imagine Greg Hardy like has a discrepancy, like sees a discrepancy in your receipt, and he's like, "Oh, I don't see the toothpicks on here," and I'm like,
I don't think he's smart enough to read the receipt. So moving on to defend this guy.
That's mean. That's
Greg Hardy's mean. How about that?
He is mean, but yeah. Any other Jets guys?
Ashton Davis.
Ashton Davis. We can talk Ashton Davis.
The 2020 draft class is gone. He was the last one.
Yeah. What the hell, man? I would have re-signed him for that money. I mean, he's not moving the needle. I don't think he's really moving the needle. But in terms of what other safeties are getting, what other secondary players are getting, he provided some pretty good plays last year. Some pretty bad plays, but some pretty good plays too. I mean, what is it, $4 million you got?
2.5. 2.5.
I would have done.
I think it could go up.
Go up to 3. Okay. Yeah, no, I would have. It's not a huge deal, but if I were to get the notification that the Jets re-signed, would be like, oh, nice. I would have said, oh, nice, and moved on.
I wouldn't have been upset. I think I was already like, I already knew he was gone because he was a Grant Boyer favorite and he was a Robert Saleh favorite, and neither of those coaches are here anymore. So he's kind of his lifeline to the Jets is gone. He's fine. He's a good special teamer who maximized his snaps when he was out there, just in terms of getting turnovers, but definitely not a starting caliber safety. Not that the Dolphins are paying him to do that. I don't think. I think he technically is a starter for them right now because they really don't have anything. They brought in Ifeadi Melifonwu as well. I think. I don't know. I think I heard that. I think they might have brought in the safety.
Solomon Thomas to the Cowboys was the other one, which 2 years, $8 million.
All right, who's going to be our
Aaron Whitecott? That's the only reason he's there because Aaron Whitecott is their new defensive line coach. I did see it was funny that I saw people. Cowboys reporters were saying it was like, oh, he has a really good rep as a good pass rusher, a weak and run defense.
No, he doesn't.
Right. I was like,
he's a nice guy, but
like he's not good at either thing.
He's a nice guy.
Wonderful human being, but not that he was.
It's like the Commanders with Kinlaw, like he's some sort of
Wasn't the whole rep on him though? He was like technically a better run defender. That's what people said about him, and he was not.
Yeah.
I don't know how that narrative got shifted. Not that he's particularly good at either.
Guys,
the one I want to talk about. I don't know if you're about to bring it up. I do want to talk about one former Jets player going to a new team. I want to talk about Zach Wilson, and I'm sorry to bring it up. Sorry to bring up his name. I know we
that's worse than Rodgers, man.
But I think we need to talk about Zach Wilson signing a $6 million deal to be the Miami Dolphins backup quarterback next year. He's not really competing. By all accounts, he will be QB2. And I would like to say that I could not think of a more disastrous landing spot for Zach Wilson.
Just a wretched. And the fact he's the backup, not like competing for the backup.
I would say that the Miami Dolphins, who have probably the most injury-prone starting quarterback in the NFL, in Tua Tagovailoa. Obviously, there's the concussion issues, and I hope he stays healthy. But there's a major injury concern with Tua Tagovailoa, who has played one full season, I believe, in his career. You're now bringing in Zach Wilson to be his backup. Zach Wilson is not a QB2 caliber player. He is not good enough from anything that we've seen him put on tape. I don't know if Sean Payton magically turned him into a backup caliber quarterback, but nothing that we've seen would tell me that he is a backup caliber quarterback yet. and they're bringing him into an offense that is, I would say, just a better version of the offense that Zach Wilson already hated playing in with the Jets.
It's more predilected on
timing,
predicated on, timing and being precise and get this ball here. Then Wilson's the worst with that.
That is literally the biggest weaknesses of Zach Wilson's game are timing, anticipation, and accuracy. And that is the entire offense is predicated on those things, which is partially why he hated LaFleur's offense. Not that, again, we're not going to be on here standing for Michael LaFleur, even though neither of us, I don't know about you, Mike G, but we didn't think that the Jets should have fired Michael LaFleur when they did. Zach Wilson hated Michael LaFleur, hated that offense.
And Michael LaFleur probably didn't like Zach Wilson.
I'm sure he didn't, because Zach Wilson's a terrible quarterback to run that kind of an offense. So now the Dolphins are bringing him into a situation where he's probably going to play next year, because I don't think anyone's expecting Tua to play a full 17 games. And when he does, he's now going to be asked to run an offense that he has already vocally hated, and an offense that perfectly emphasizes his weaknesses, that asks him to do things he cannot do. I cannot think of a more calamitous quarterback.
I like if he vocally hates the offense like every other quarterback loves, but he hates it.
There are certain I think Justin Fields will be another guy who would be a terrible fit for a Shanahan offense.
Yes.
There's guys who, while the offense is really good at maximizing the ability of guys who don't have a ton of physical talents and are, more like Kyle McCord. I think Kyle McCord could do a really good job in a Shanahan style offense. And if he goes to the Niners or, send him to Minnesota, send him to
Tyler Shuck is the Tyler Shuck is the Shanahan guy this year.
Sure, I can see that too. He's got a lot of talent too. I feel like he's more talented than the Shanahan quarterback. But
you don't have to suck to be a Shanahan quarterback.
No, you don't.
Ryan.
You don't have to, but a lot of times it's like, hey, let's get the most we can out of Jimmy Garoppolo. That's kind of
you have to be uninspiring is what you have to be
in most scenarios. But yeah, I just thought that was a terrible, terrible move for the Dolphins. And I think Dolphins fans agree, which is normally, I feel like I have a few friends who are Dolphins fans.
The national media loves it more than the Dolphins fan.
Well, because what
is Zach Wilson doing with the national media?
Because, Mike, if you're a former Jets quarterback, you are going to be beloved because everyone's just going to be like, oh, he was on the Jets. Nothing that happened with the Jets matters. The tape doesn't matter. It is completely irrelevant.
Denver didn't even think of playing him.
Yeah, he didn't play a snap last year, and somehow the narrative is now like, hey, he's a worthy reclamation project as a QB too, because people see what happened with Darnold, see what happened with Gino, and they're like, oh, Zach could be the next one, ignoring the fact that Zach Wilson was statistically one of the worst quarterbacks in modern NFL history. I haven't said that statement in a while. It felt good to say that again.
So official, Schefter, they're releasing. They're going to take on $49 million.
Wait.
In dead money.
Oh! I thought that
post June 1st. Okay.
Schefter worded that weirdly. I thought that meant they were taking it on all this year, and I was going to be happy because that's what I wanted them to do.
I saw that.
$5 million next year.
So they're splitting it. $21 million cap hit until June 1st when it drops to $14 million. So so they'll absorb 30. Yeah. So it is what it is. So it's 31. It's 14 this year, 35 in 2026.
I guess maybe that's why Fields got all this money up front partially.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because they're taking. I wish they didn't do that. As I was saying for a while, I wish they just took the full $49 million cap hit up front. I don't think they need the cap, the salary cap this year.
Cap's going to go up every year too. So
yeah, but they don't need the cap space this year, and they really could use it more next year. So that's what moves are they making in free agency that they need the cap space for? Not much.
Brandon Stevens
apparently. That's why they're doing it. But yeah, I wish they. What did Brian say here? I didn't read this comment before I put it up here, by the way. I'm expecting Tua to get stuck in an elevator due to a mysterious mechanical issue in the Dolphins visit next season. Honestly, you're probably going to get a Justin Fields, Zach Wilson quarterback duel, Jets Dolphins, but it'll be weird because Fields will be the Jets quarterback. And Zach Wilson will be the Dolphins quarterback. Also, if Rodgers signs with the Steelers, we are 100%.
Monday Night Football week 1 immediately.
100%. I don't know if it's be week 1. It might be week 1.
What? Why is everyone? I don't understand why everyone's saying that.
I don't know if it'll be week 1.
Guys, no one else cares about the Jets and Rodgers anymore, but aside from us, I don't think.
Oh, I don't know. I feel like
people care about Rodgers.
People care about Rodgers.
Do they want to see a Monday Night Football for the third?
I mean, the entire offseason after the biggest thing left is where's he going to go?
I don't think it's big enough of a game for it to be week 1, like everyone is saying, because I don't think the Jets or Steelers are going to be good enough for that. But I do think that's a Monday Night Football game at some point in the season. Probably.
They're smart.
if they're smart, it'll be early in the season before Rodgers or Fields has a chance to get hurt.
I can agree with that. I promise you, it won't be if they sign Steelers. If Rodgers signs with the Pittsburgh Steelers, they will not be playing Week 1 on Monday Night Football. I can guarantee you that.
I'd be surprised.
Chew says Bills signed Bosa for $12 million. That's okay. We have Weaver. Bosa wouldn't have come here. Bosa.
I also like Bosa, but he's gonna be good for 6 games. He's gonna get hurt.
Yeah,
he's not gonna come to a woke blue state like
you know Jersey. What? All they need.
He's a Bosa after all.
But look, you need a few of those guys in your trenches. Like,
I guess. Yeah.
If my O-line and D-line aren't like a Bosa's, like I don't want them.
I'm surprised he didn't go to the Niners. You get both the brothers.
The Niners and Dolphins were the 2 teams that everyone was expecting.
Because his dad played for the Dolphins too. So.
Yeah, and they wanted him, and they offered him.
John Bosa.
If you're the Bills, though, if you just have him healthy for the playoffs in the game against whoever it's going to be, Kansas City, Baltimore, whoever it is, and he performs in the playoffs, $12 million will be all forgotten about. Even if he plays 3 games in the regular season and stinks it up, just get him back for the playoffs. This is all that move is for.
All right. I know we're way over, but one last thing I want to talk about. What are the moves we think the Jets are going to make? Who else do we think are going to sign? Any trades? Because the wide receiver room is looking real scary right now. It is scary hours for the wide receiver room. I know we talked about Lazard a little bit earlier. What do you think the Jets still can do in free agency? What guys do you think they might bring in? Any guys you think they're targeting or you think they should target? What do you both think?
I have a 3-point plan.
All right, let's hear it.
Before the draft. You sign Dalvin Tomlinson.
On board. Love it.
Get your second defensive tackle next to Quinn. Because I don't know if Mason Graham's going to make it to 7.
Mm-hmm.
You get a 1-year deal for Jedrick Wills, put him at right tackle. There's your right tackle.
Okay.
You take a 3rd, maybe a day 3 pick next year, like a 6th or something. You send that to the Steelers, and you get George Pickens.
Yeah, we talked about this last night, Mike.
And that is
not happening.
Wide receiver 2 taken care of. That's your defensive line, and that's your right tackle taken care of.
It's really interesting.
They're not guys. There is no chance in hell they trade George Pickens this offseason.
They're going to pay him and Metcalf.
Man,
they don't have to pay Pickens right now. Why would they do that? Why the hell would they trade him right now? They just added Metcalf to be a part of the offense with George Pickens.
I think they were already on the fence about paying Pickens. I know they don't technically have to pay him this offseason, but he's going to want an extension this offseason.
And he seems like a guy who could cause some problems if he's not paid.
Absolutely. DK just got his payday. There's already been run-ins with Pickens and that coaching staff and that locker room, that organization. I don't think they were particularly pleased with him, and I don't think they made the DK Metcalf trade with the vision that they would have Metcalf and Pickens for the next 4 years. I don't think that's what they.
Mostly because they're so stylistically similar too.
They are. They really are very similar.
Big vertical deep ball guys.
I would predict that they trade George Pickens this offseason. I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but I think they'll trade him this offseason. As soon as they made that Metcalf trade, that was one of my first thoughts. Like, oh, Pickens is probably gone.
But as we mentioned earlier, though, the one downside is if you go to Mike Tomlin and Aaron Glenn in successive seasons and neither of them can get you to fall in line, it might be over for you.
That's like
if they can't get the effort out of you, who can?
We're extending. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I have a couple thoughts on a potential Pickens trade for the Jets. You mentioned a little bit. One, I am a little concerned about the. I don't even want to call it off-field stuff. It's more so just like
it's on-field.
It's on the field.
It's on-field stuff.
It's crashing out in the middle of games.
Yeah, like I have concerns about paying a guy who has had situations like that arise in the past. And you have a Steelers locker room. You know, Mike Tomlin's a great coach, and he has a long history. I don't know if it's the Steelers just attract players like this, but he has a long history of dealing with players like that. And he seems to know when to cut bait. Like he cut bait at the right time with Antonio Brown. He cut bait at the right time with Deontay Johnson, who I also.
What happened to him, man? Jeez.
I have been a huge Deontay Johnson fan for the last few years. I thought he's one of the most undervalued receivers in football. He's always like, look.
Well, boy, don't you look silly.
God, I hated that narrative so much.
He's got drop issues, but in terms of like getting open, I thought he's one of the best route runners in the entire NFL. I love Deontay Johnson. If it wasn't for him crashing out and ruining his entire career last offseason, I'd be like, hey, the Jets should sign him. But yeah, I don't know what in the world went on with him. But Tomlin is a track record of cutting bait with those guys at the right time. If the Steelers trade George Pickens right now, and Tomlin's like, yeah, we're moving on. We don't want to deal with this anymore. I would have some concerns and be like, oh man,
Yeah.
probably right about this one.
And
So that would be my concern. I also don't know what it would cost. You said 3rd round pick. Seems reasonable. You have to pay him.
Metcalf was a 2 and a 5.
I think it'd be a 2.
You think it'd be that
Pickens
high?
is, what is he, 24, 25 years old?
Yeah, but he's worse than Metcalf, and you now have to pay him. Not that DK. Honestly, DK has gotten, I feel like, a little overrated. He hasn't been.
He definitely is overrated.
That DK in a year or two now.
And if he, let's say I'm totally wrong. It comes out like the Steelers have granted Pickens permission to seek a trade. The Jets wouldn't. I don't think the Jets would be even in the teams considering that. Because look, I mean, we're gonna have to extend Garrett Wilson.
Well, that's the other thing is like you have to pay Garrett Wilson, and you're presumably going to do that. I mean, you should do that as soon as you can. I'll say this prediction right now. I think a Sauce Gardner extension gets done this offseason.
Yeah.
When? Yeah. I think before the draft. I think they get that done. Garrett, I'm less confident about. I think there's more complicated situation there, but I think Sauce gets done. They have to pay Garrett Wilson. So now if they're bringing in George Pickens, they're presumably going to pay him as well. So I would have reservations. But, look, if the Jets traded a 3rd round pick or whatever it is for George Pickens, am I going to be upset? Absolutely not. I'm going to talk myself into why, hey, the Jets now have one of the best wide receiver duos in the NFL. I do see the potential concern with it. Another guy that's been thrown out there, a lot of Jets Twitter mentioning him, is Chris Olave, who another former Justin Fields teammate, was a teammate of Garrett Wilson at Ohio State. Also, forgotten in this is Jeremy Ruckert, was also a teammate on that team. So, Ruckert's
he hasn't been released yet.
No, he's still kicking around. So maybe they're just gonna reunite all the Buckeyes, the Ohio State Jets.
He'll just be like the 53rd guy on the roster, throw Fields and Wilson a bone.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But it's interesting. I like Olave as a player. I don't think he's quite as good as his first 2 years numbers would indicate. He had 1,000-yard seasons his first 2 years. I don't think he's that good. I think he's good. I think he's a very good young player.
He'd be a great 2.
He'd be a great 2. The issues are twofold. One, most obvious one, concussion. He had 2 concussions last year. He has now been concussed 4 times in his first 3 years in the NFL, 5 times if you date back to college. That is a major concern. He got concussed twice in 4 weeks last year and missed the entire second half of the season because of it. Because of a gnarly looking.
Oh, it was bad.
Yeah.
That is a major concern if you are trading for him, especially because you're probably going to have to pay him. You maybe don't pay him this offseason, maybe don't pay him yet, but you have to make a decision on his 5th-year option. That's the Saints are in a situation where they have to make a decision on his 5th-year option right now. That is going to cost them $15+ million in 2026 if you pick that up, which I think they will right now, but it's a genuine discussion because of those injuries. It's a risky trade if they make a move for Chris Olave. I like the player. I like the fit. It makes a ton of sense. It would be really fun if the Jets had Justin Fields throw into Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave as his top 2 targets. I just have concerns about the cost of it. I don't know what it would cost to get him, and I have concerns about the concussions. But I like the idea. What do you guys think?
Really quick for that, Colin Scholl, Bears fan, Jets second. You got one in Justin Fields. Tomlin is a complete moron for letting him walk. Let's hope so.
Let's hope you're right, man. I'm rooting for Justin Fields. I feel like he's such an easy dude to root for. I am very, very happy that he's on the Jets because I've always liked him. I've always wanted him to succeed, and now that he's on the Jets,
they could have had him a couple of years ago, and instead,
Justin Fields definitely a more I'm not going to shit on Zach Wilson. I don't know personally, but I feel like Justin Fields is an easier guy to root for than a Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
For sure.
I've not heard a teammate say one negative, even intimate one negative thing about Justin Fields.
It is very telling that, again,
the opposite.
Justin Fields was benched last year, and Steelers players were all advocating to bring him back this year. While not advocating to bring back Russ. That speaks volumes. But what do you guys think about Olave? What do you think about that trade?
Olave's better than Pickens, but just his brain is scrambled eggs, and I don't know if I trust that.
I don't know if this is a hot take. I think George Pickens is a better wide receiver than Chris Olave. Despite Olave's numbers being better, I think Pickens is better.
I think I'd agree with you. Slightly. I mean, they're in the
you got to factor in though, there were some effort concerns. There were obviously the crash outs, that all has to factor into it.
I'm not talking about ignoring
the act of catching the ball and making plays. Maybe
the act of being a wide receiver, I think he's better. Obviously, there's other factors to consider here. I'm just talking about in a vacuum. I think he's a better player.
Pickens also too at Georgia got hurt all the time, so you got to. He's not like an Iron Man either.
Yeah, he hasn't been banged up in the NFL that much, has he?
He's missed a couple games here or there, but he basically missed his whole last year because he got hurt. So
Yeah, I mean, he played all 17 games his first 2 years, and then only missed 3 games last year. That's fine.
Maybe I must have remembered that wrong. Huh.
Yeah, he's not like, I mean, I wouldn't. He's not an injury concern. The concern with him is more, the attitude stuff, and obviously you got to pay him. You got to pay him sooner than you have to pay Olave.
They only have enough money for one position though, where do you attack? Do you go right tackle? Do you go defensive tackle? Do you go wide receiver too?
In free agency,
That's
you can only get one.
I'd say D tackle because I think there are actually good defensive tackle options, right? Like Levi Ozurike is still out there. Dalvin Tomlinson.
He just seems like Kinlaw to me.
Signed 2 of these guys. We let so many of them go over the past 2 years.
Is like Kinlaw?
Well, a top pick, often injured. DC says I can fix him in the new spot. Like
I don't think he's. I mean, look, it depends on what they give him. If they give him anything close to what the hell Kinlaw got, that's not good. But I thought he was pretty solid last year with the Lions. He's not bad. I wouldn't hate it. Like I don't think he's like a game changer, but he's still out there. Tomlinson's out there. I think there are D tackles, more defensive tackle options out there than there's virtually nothing at wide receiver.
DJ Jones getting $40 million was unfortunate.
These markets are going nuts, man. These markets, which is why dude, the Josh Palmer deal, great contract for the Bills. I thought that was a really good deal for them. Dolphins getting Westbrook-Ikhine for 2 years, $6.5 million. Awesome deal. Mm-hmm. I would spend on a D tackle. Sorry.
No. I was just gonna say. I mean, look, Darius Slayton getting $12 million. This is why you extend Garrett Wilson right now. You extend Sauce Gardner. There's no reason to put these things off. Like I really don't understand the reasons for putting these. Can you guys think of anything as to why they should be waiting on either of these guys?
Garrett, they should be banging on his door saying, "Hey, I don't know." Like I think the
J.C. Horn just got $100 million.
The complication with Garrett would be if he's ready to commit to the Jets. I think that would be the complication.
Here's $33 million a year. You ready to commit? Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Myles Garrett wasn't committing to the Browns, and then what happened?
Money talks. That's very true. I think Sauce is just.
I believe it was George Young, the old GM of the Giants, when they have Parcells, who goes, whenever a player says it's not about the money, it's always about the money.
Javon Holland, I believe, was like, I want to go to a winning organization with a stable quarterback situation, a stable coach, and he signs with the Giants.
I mean, DK Metcalf, I want to go to a warm weather city with a good quarterback, and then he goes to the Steelers.
Right. Money.
That's not going to work out. I really don't think that's going to work out.
There's been a lot of those lately where athletes they'll like make a list of demands, they'll meet 0 of them, and then they're like, I'll get a new contract anyway.
Sauce Gardner, to me, feels like the most straightforward extension that the Jets have had.
He also has said, I know Garrett's intimated trades and stuff like that. Sauce has said from the jump he wants to play only for the Jets forever.
Sauce continues to publicly and privately say he only wants to play for the Jets. He wants to get extended. This is a guy who is a top 3 to 5 player at his position in the NFL. Who plays a very important position.
Was number 1 as recently as a year ago.
Yeah, he was the best corner in the league for 2 years straight.
Yep.
And he misses a few tackles last year, and it's, oh my God, we can't extend him.
Yeah.
He got 1 holding penalty. Oh my God.
I genuinely think Sauce is right up there with Justin. Well, I don't know if I'd say Justin Herbert, but it's like this guy has the worst PR in the entire.
Yes.
Like the discrepancy between how fans
Caleb Williams
and how the NFL views him. Maybe Caleb Williams too. Maybe Caleb Williams is probably up there as well. But like
Caleb Williams is 5 times better than Zach Wilson ever was? Who's talked about more positively?
There was a thing that was sent to me earlier that I shared on Twitter, which was a Vikings podcast was talking about the possibility of trading Sauce Gardner for Jordan Addison, and they were on the fence about it. And there were a lot of Viking fans saying, no, absolutely not. You can't trade Jordan Addison. You can't do this. Absolutely not.
Sauce. Yeah, you can.
And I'm just like sitting there like.
They could throw in Addison and like a first and a second. I'd be like, no, don't do that.
Sauce Gardner is one of the 10 most valuable non-quarterbacks in the NFL. Given his contract, given his age, given his performance, you're saying
ask every GM in the league, including Quessy for the Vikings. Who would you rather have, Sauce Gardner or Jordan Addison? Everybody would say Sauce.
They would trade 3 Jordan Addisons for Sauce Gardner. Jordan Addison's good. He's a very good young number 2 receiver who maybe he could be a wide receiver 1 if he had the opportunity. I don't know. He also has off-field issues. He's never gone for 1,000 yards in the season.
Mm-hmm.
No, like absolutely not.
I get overvaluing your own players. Every fan base can do that, but guys.
As Brian said, 2024 was the only year Gardner was not an indisputable top 5 cornerback in the NFL, but he was still comfortably top 20. I'd say comfortably top 10. He allowed fewer catches than any qualified corner in the NFL last year. Obviously, we've had
the only thing he's got to do is like every time somebody post a video of the one catch he allows every game. Be like, I only allowed one catch in my PFF grades. Awesome, you're an idiot. Like he's got to stop that.
He'll say that, and then you'll get all the trolls in his comments because he's one of the most trolled dudes in the NFL. Also, look, he brings.
Doesn't help that he deletes every.
I was going to say
he makes though too.
He brings it upon himself. He also like. And we talked about this, Luch. He's like a bottom 5 poster in the NFL. Like he's one of the worst tweeters.
You walk as Brandon Stevens. I don't care if you suck, you'll be good with me. I mean,
right? It's like, dude,
it doesn't matter who's on the other side.
Be a little more careful with your wording. Like everyone's criticizing.
He didn't mean to do that, but still.
But like everyone is hating the Stevens signing. Everyone's like, "Oh, this guy sucks. This guy sucks." Sauce's first comment is, "Hey, it don't matter how good he is. He's gonna ball regardless when he's next to me." It's like, no, read a room. That's not what you should be saying. And I know he doesn't mean harm, but God, it's the Marlon Humphrey rule where it's
at
like,
least
like my star corner might be a terrible tweeter, but at least he's a really good player. Like
he's genuine. At least we know he's genuine, right? He is a great.
Russell Wilson, I guess.
A great dude.
Yeah. All right,
so people don't like Russell Wilson because he's fake, and they don't like Sauce and Pickens because they're too real.
Sauce is very real. Or George Pickens is very real. I'll say that. George Pickens, not on my football team, he's one of my favorite dudes to watch because he's just so funny. Like every game, I'm like, he's gonna fight someone. Like he's gonna just swing on a guy.
I remember one play. I can't remember who it was, but it was like he was blocking, and then the guy was like, it's one of those things where the guy keeps moving, and then like the pile stops.
When he was in college.
No, the Steelers, and he just RKO's somebody, just elbow drop. Like
there was the famous fight he got into with Jets legend, current Jets practice squad cornerback Trey Swilling.
Oh, Tech,
where Georgia Tech that Pickens got into a fight with him, like a legitimate fist fight with Trey Swilling in college.
I want him to go to the Texans. That way we get him and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson in practice every day.
Oh, dude.
Oh, that would be.
Oh, God, the fireworks. That would be Cortland Finnegan. What's his name?
Andre Johnson
levels of like disaster, or like prime OBJ Josh Norman. Like it would be that.
I forgot about that. Yeah,
it would be Family Guy, Peter Griffin, and the Chicken just fighting on site. Before they even like.
It's like Looney Tunes when there's just like a dust cloud, like an arm and a leg.
Yeah,
and
that's what it would be. There would be 4 fights.
They just like sweep up other players as it moves.
In training camp, they'd be brawling. It'd be so funny. I need that to happen. All right, last thing. I know this is the longest story. Really quick, because you mentioned the right tackle thing, and I did want to talk about this super quick. You mentioned Jedrick Wills. I've seen a lot of Jets fans throw that out there too. Am I crazy for not being as high on Wills as others? I know it's like a situation where the's no good option. Like I'm not. I know you're not.
It's a fields upside thing,
right? I know you're not advocating saying he's like a great option by any means, but he's played what 10 games in the last 2 years, 13 games, 12 games, something like that. He's been hurt, and even when he's been out there, he's not been good. I just, if it wasn't for the injuries, I'd be a little bit more like, all right, maybe take the upside swing. But yeah, I know he was a former first-round pick.
Who else? Who else you gonna?
I threw out on Twitter, Kendall Lamb is a guy that I'd like to see the Jets bring in. I think Kendall Lamb is kind of being undervalued right now. He's basically a career swing tackle. He has experience playing both tackle positions, but he's played very well.
The reason I want Wills is because even if you get like a 1 year like a Lamb, I want them to use their top 3 picks on like the receivers and the defensive tackle spot if they don't get somebody there.
Mm-hmm.
If you get Wills is the only one where I think if you get him, you don't have to necessarily use a top 100 pick on a tackle because I think their line is pretty good anyway. If you don't get him and you get like a Lamb or somebody else like that, I feel like you've kind of pigeonholed yourself into at some point in the first 3 rounds, you have to take a tackle. And that's one less wide receiver, one less defensive tackle.
Do we think Will Campbell's a possibility at 7?
I don't know if he's a tackle. I don't.
He's also was a left tackle in college, so you'd have to.
I don't think NFL teams view him as a tackle. I think if the Jets are going to take a lineman at 7, it'd be Armand Membu, who, hey, look, I said that a few weeks ago.
I kind of like him.
Crazy, and now it's like a popular take.
Because he blew up the combine too.
I'm not shocked. I'm not surprised at all. I really like Armand Membu. I even though it wouldn't be my favorite option at 7. I don't think right tackle is like the biggest need that the Jets need to address at 7. But if Membu's there at 7 and the Jets took him, I am not upset by that at all.
What about Tet at 7?
I don't like that.
I'd rather Membu. I like McMillan.
That is just the biggest.
I think Membu's a better prospect. I like Membu.
Every year, I know prospect fatigue is a real thing. This year with Tet, it's getting crazy.
Yeah, because he was like the consensus wide receiver one, if you're not counting Hunter in that.
And he pretty much had the exact same year he did last year, and like
he's good. I like Ted McMillan.
He's not the 7th pick in the draft.
Yeah, it's not a good class. So like if he goes top 10, I wouldn't be shocked. In a normal year, he's not. In a normal year, I don't think he's a wide receiver one prospect.
I think in terms of the receiver talent, I think Hunter is in his own tier.
Yeah,
well, Hunter is. I don't even evaluate. You got to evaluate him differently.
But absolutely, I agree. He's clearly wide receiver one and cornerback one in this class.
Yeah,
honestly, I really like Emeka Ibuka, and I don't think
me too.
Like significantly better than Emeka Ibuka.
I'm not a fan of Burden only because I saw the list of.
I'm also not a huge fan of Luther Burden.
I mean, I think he's good. He's probably like a high round 2 guy for me. But I saw a list of guys who get like most of their over 800 yards on.
Is it the Malachi Corley effect?
Malachi Corley twice, yep. Jalen Hyatt, Amari Rodgers.
I was gonna say Amari Rodgers. Yep.
Is he at all a factor next year? Do you think Malachi
Corley?
All right, over under 250 yards for Malachi Corley next year.
Over only because I don't think they're going to have I feel like they're going to have to play him because they just don't have the resources to upgrade.
I don't know, man. I'm not even convinced he's on the roster.
I could maybe see a new coaching staff being like, all right, maybe let's try it. Because I'm sure the Lions probably had a similar sort of grade on Corley.
This is one of the most sacrilegious things I've ever said on the show. You think there's a chance that Tanner Engstrom's going to look at him and say, hey, Amon-Ra St. Brown?
Oh,
I feel like they might just say Cordero Patterson.
Or Cordero Patterson.
Put him at running
back. How about somebody who plays
really hard? If you squint really hard and you're like maybe just close your eyes entirely. Maybe you could see a little bit of like
they wear the same number. Other than that,
that's what it's like. Maybe that's what it is. They wear the same number, and like
true.
Amon-Ra St. Brown had like 90 catches as rookie. You're not one of them to throw the ball down at the 1 yard line.
They're not even like Amon-Ra St. Brown's a great receiver, and I'm not sure Malachi. I'm not even sure Malachi Corley is.
That's where all that like anti-Jet stuff comes in because they're like, oh, they never gave Malachi Corley a chance. It's like they gave him 1 catch and he fumbled the ball to 1.
Right.
No wonder they don't throw him the ball.
They gave him plenty of chances. He couldn't even beat out Brandon Smith in the summer. Like
Xavier Gibson was ahead of him the entire time, and it was never a competition.
Remember Douglas and Saleh's text exchange at 70, no matter
they ranked
what.
him higher than Brian Thomas.
Low key.
Higher than Brian Thomas.
I know there were so many embarrassing moments with the Jets last year. That might be the most embarrassing thing looking back.
Yeah.
In terms of the level of failure, at least Rodgers
they were on their knees for this guy. And
this is what they were trying to trade
immediately he was never even like the second they got him in, it was like Hackenberg where they got him in camp and they're like, oh, we made a huge mistake.
Yes,
like immediately.
It was an immediate like, oh shit, well, we messed up. And now
this is gonna look really bad.
Now the new guys are just coming in like, all right, well, Malachi Corley, Xavier Gibson, Alan Lazard are secondary wide receivers here.
It's just like, well, that's the end of Maine. Joe Douglas walks away.
Wow. We streamed for an hour and 45 minutes, and the Jets did not make a wide receiver move, unless I'm jinxing it right now.
It's going to be Tim Patrick right after this.
It's going to be Tim Patrick right after this, probably.
Well,
Patrick and his brittle bone disease, peanut brittle legs.
All right. Is there anything else you want to touch on in this?
I think we hit them all.
Special. We got a lot, man. There's a lot. There's still a lot to happen. We'll be back next week because there's going to be so much talk about. The Jets still have a lot more moves to make. They will sign more players. I promise. They will sign a wide receiver. I almost promise. They will make other moves. So we'll have a lot to talk about. And yeah, I don't know. What do you guys have any final thoughts before we sign off?
I'm happy they got Justin Fields because if they sign Daniel Jones or Carson Wentz.
Oh, buddy.
Think about what we would be doing right now.
The vibe difference between Justin Fields and Carson Wentz. And I know there's a lot of fans who
they're not that far apart as quarterbacks, Daniel Jones and Justin Fields, but the difference in vibes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's incalculable.
It is. It absolutely is. And I know a lot of Jets fans are miserable right now. But I know not every Jets fan loves Justin Fields signing.
I will say, Chew, though, I don't think the Jets knew how to use him. It was the least imaginative in history. That's true. They also gave him a touch and he fumbled. It's like the few times they did use him, he didn't do. Like that's not like
that was the most
problem. Like if you throw the ball away at the one, that's not like it's Nathaniel Hackett's fault.
By the way, when he let go of that ball, it was the most obvious. Like this will come back. Like he was half.
It was like a yard and a half. It wasn't even close.
Not even close.
Oh man.
was not even close.
Kirk Herbstreit too, because Kirk Herbstreit is always like hyping up the college guys. He's like, "Oh, we can finally see him break out," and then he does that, and he's like, "Oh no."
Yep.
And then he got healthy scratched.
He did. Brian said, "Stick around through 4 and they'll sign someone." Probably. Probably. I mean, they're gonna look at 4:00. They're probably going to officially announce the release of Aaron Rodgers. I know Schefter just reported it now, but they will officially announce the release. I imagine the other, because they only get 2 post-June 1st cuts. We didn't get to mention him, but I imagine they'll cut CJ Mosley. He'll probably post a post-June 1st cut as well, which makes me think, again, the reason, like, Lazard is still here for a reason, because I don't think they're going to make him a post-June 1st guy. They can only have 2 of those, and it's going to be Rodgers and I would assume Mosley. They could have cut Lazard at any point. The fact that he's still here makes me think that there is a genuine chance that he is back next year. So maybe we'll leave you with that. Get excited for Alan Lazard wide receiver season. It might be happening. But yeah, boys, that's it. This is the longest that we have ever had. It's over an hour and 45 minutes. Appreciate everybody who tuned in, for anybody who sat through this whole thing. Greatly appreciate you spending your Wednesday afternoon with us. And get excited, because in 13 minutes, T-minus 13 minutes, free agency officially starts, and the hopefully make a few more moves. But until next time, thank you all for joining us on the show today. You can follow Mike on Twitter at @Mike Follow me on Twitter, Justin T. Freed. Follow Mike Giarraputo. Actually, quick, Mike, you want to plug anything you do? Plug yourself. Go for it.
Yeah, I got Twitter, guys. If you'd like to follow me there, it's at Mike Giarraputo. You can listen to some of my on-air clips there. You can see some of my tweets about the Jets. You can see some of my tweets about other sports. Guys, thanks for having me on this historic podcast. What ended up being a historic podcast. I'm glad to make history with you boys. But final thoughts: the further removed we are away from Aaron Rodgers, the better I feel as a Jets fan. Justin Fields is going to be a great leader. He might not be a great quarterback, but hey, we'll see what happens, guys.
I'm going to remember that, and then if they're 1-4, I want you to remember that.
Wait, what? All right. My last parting thought for Mike Luch. Look at the other fan bases. Look at the Steelers and the Giants fan bases right now. Are either of them badly wanting Aaron Rodgers, or are they saying, please, God, let him stay away from my team?
Those teams are on.
They're saying that, and then if he has even if he has the year he had with the Jets last year, and they're just going to end up winning more games, like with the Steelers, would win more games with that production than the Jets, then they're going to get the same. Oh, they didn't lose in the play. Like they're gonna turn around if he plays well.
Big if.
Well, the Steelers,
because also the Steelers are not the Jets, and therefore Jets things won't happen with them. So.
The Steelers have also not had a losing season in 21 years. So I imagine
they haven't had a good quarterback.
Oh, yeah, if he breaks the streak.
I was gonna say, how hilarious would it be if the Steelers win 7 games next year, and the first time in 21 years they don't have a winning record is with Aaron Rodgers. And I'm not a Rodgers hater by any means. I just know what the narrative will be if he does do well there, and I don't want that to happen. So that I will be rooting against him just for the sake of the narrative against the Jets next year. Nothing against Rodgers, nothing against really. And I want to see Tomlin succeed. I like Mike Tomlin, but anyway. Follow the Jet Press, download the Jet Press podcast. Check us out on YouTube, subscribe, hit the notification bell. You can also become a member today. It is 99 cents. We had 2 people earlier, Mother F and Chew and Connor Long, both donated 5 memberships, which is 99 cents. You get your comments prioritized with that. It is much appreciated on that last note as well, Mother F and Chew, as we try to give our members the priority chat thing. He said, I believe Corley made that idiot move at the goal line is indicative of the poor coaching and lack of discipline. Yeah, man. I think it's a combination of both. It's a combination of Corley probably is not good and just could not play at the NFL level. At least he couldn't last year. And the coaching staff not being good. But anyway, before we delay any further, we stream live normally every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be back next week at that time. Check out the stuff we have going up in the Jet Press. There has been so many articles that have been up this week because we have a lot to talk about. We have a live free agency tracker that is there as well, which I was using as a reference point when we were trying to remember everything the Jets have done. That is still up on the website, so keep up to date with every Jets move that they make. Until next time, I've been Justin Freed. That has been Mike Luciano. That has been Mike Giarraputo. Thank you for listening to Jet Press Podcast. See you all next week.
Justin Fields is our quarterback.